don't say words that I was okay.
Hold on. All right, rock and roll.
Yeah, buddy.
I saw you, man. Don't worry. I saw you. Corner of my eye. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com MLB Deeper Dive. I'm Dave Loughran, Lafayette_D on Twitter, joined by Eric Lindquist in the new digs. The man's got a new house, and he's feeling good today, ready to break down a 13-game slate. Unfortunately, his chair has not been delivered yet. See, he is sitting on a little person stool. What's up, brother?
Yes, I am. It's fantastic. I'm excited. I've got a putter rack that's just hanging over the corner. I'm going to have a TV that goes directly behind me. I got these hexagon things that Jordan Klein made me order, and I'm very excited about because they look cool, but still have boxes everywhere. The movers are taking their dear sweet time with everything, but they're working hard. And it's hot out, so I'm going to give them a break, but just excited to be here. I have my own space, own spot, kind of putting everything together here. Just want to have a fully operational Death Star by NFL Week 1.
Sweet, man. It's going to be fun. It's going to be some
awesome.
work. It'll be some work, but it'll be fun. Well, we're happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up. Come in the door. Take a single second. Tone for your sins here on the Deeper Dive and tap that thumbs up. Appreciate you guys in advance. Subscribe to the channel. You know, I was just thinking about this today. We got football coming up and everything, right?
Oh, we do.
And don't worry, I'm not going to get into football, but I was just thinking.
Would like that.
Me too. But I was just thinking, like, we could theoretically hit 100K subs on the Stokastic channel and on the Odd Shopper channel, not too far off from each other, like during football season. That'd be pretty sweet. Get double. We're 2 subs away from 90K here on this one. So we need 10K during NFL. And then on Odd Shopper, we need about 20K, but betting is huge right now. I think we could get some double play buttons in our future, brother, in the NFL season.
I'm ready for it. Dude, 90K. I feel like when I started, we were grinding up to 50K. And then this last 40 has been like 2.5 years. Is that right?
On what?
On the Stokastic YouTube channel.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Pretty good stuff.
Must be all this new talent that you acquired here at Stokastic.
Hey, let's talk baseball.
Oh,
13
goody.
games. Man,
Yep.
Can you believe people used to listen to that stuff like with the legitimate radio voice? Like, good morning, everybody. You're listening to WYKE.
Or they would listen to singing that sounded more like yodeling.
Yeah. We got some killer jams coming up. Sit back. Enjoy the drive.
You're cheating, or
yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
Jim? Crazy. But yeah, 13 games. Dude, I talked to Matt Bellman on the strategy show today, and let me just say, I'm not sure what happened with some of the pricing. Like, I understand you can't just price everybody down when it's not an elite pitcher slate at the top. Some of these higher tier pitchers, we'll call them, are exorbitant price tags today. Many of them not even in great matchups either.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that stand out. I mean, the Jordan Montgomery one just sticks out like a sore thumb. Lucas Giolito sticks out like a sore thumb.
I think that's even worse.
Yeah, the Giolito one, I mean, at least you're able to get somebody with strikeout upside under 1% as a result of that. I kind of always enjoy when you can make those kind of pivots. But, I mean, yeah, it's exorbitant. This all started because Spencer Strider's really, really good, and people were playing him in 75% of lineups at 11K. He's up to like 12.5, 13K on different slates, and now other guys have come along for the ride. So it's almost like they're getting punished for the sins of Spencer Strider.
Well, let's talk about it. Appreciate you guys getting us north of 50 likes out of the gate here. Going to be a good night. Boston, Washington. And as always, Eric, you're relatively new to the Deeper Dive. I told Matt this morning before we started. I think he assumed I was singling him out personally, but I'm not. And I wasn't. That with 13 games, some of them we just don't need to spend much time on. That's all. We just
Fair.
probably won't spend a couple minutes or spend a minute or two on some of them. Some of these other ones, we're going to spend a lot on. Nick Pivetta, that price tag is interesting, huh? Going up against Josiah Gray, 9.5 run total here. Boston, big favorites, though. I want to get your thoughts here on Pivetta on two fronts. One, what do you make of the ownership, knowing that he's going to be popular? Because so many other pitchers are priced too high. Even like the 8 and 9K guys, you could make an argument that's the case. Pivetta pulling 30%. Also, the matchup. He has a strong strikeout rate, 29%, but it is a bad team in Washington, albeit one that doesn't strike out all that often. So how do you play Pivetta given the ownership and the specific matchup?
Yeah, so he's a great strikeout pitcher. And even through his struggles, even though he's giving up hard contact at times, and, it had been better until recent, you're still looking at a guy who's facing a Washington team, 19% K rate against right-handed pitching on the season. And it just creates this chasm on this slate for me with Nick Pivetta, where he's pulling 29.9% ownership. He is the highest owned pitcher on the slate at 7,800. I find myself wanting to get away from this because I feel like we've seen a couple of these more popular pitchers, like Miles Mikolas yesterday, ended up north of 35% in some single entry. And I'm primarily playing single entry 3 max today. So I can see where at 7,800, Pivetta gets you all of the bats that you want. People are just going to click on him and figure out the rest of their lineup on how to be contrarian. For me, that makes me want to get to Washington, makes me want to get away from Pivetta, because as good as he has been from a strikeout perspective, especially, in a couple of these spots, you've got a Washington team that's still at the top of this lineup, brings speed, brings power. They're not top to bottom going to strike out either. They're going to put the ball in play more than normal. So I'm taking some shots with some Washington stacks in a couple of my other lineups that I'm building on the side. But Nick Pivetta, not going to be showing up in any of my 3 max stuff today.
Okay. None of the 3 max stuff. That makes sense. Josiah Gray, by the way, I refreshed our top pitchers and our top stacks tool. Always gives us good guidance here. He's getting no ownership whatsoever against Boston. They have a 5.7 run implied total today. Pretty tough spot to get to him.
Yeah, it's just like moving on. I can't really find myself getting to any Josiah Gray. I mean, all-star game player Josiah Gray. I mean, every team's got to have one. He ended up being it, but there's nothing about his repertoire that's like a must-have on this kind of a slate. Anytime you get to a double-digit slate here, and then all of the lefties that you're going to be facing here on the Boston side, looking at their lineup: Verdugo leading off, sub 15% K rate, Devers, Turner there, sub 20%, both of them. Tristan Cassis has been the second best hitter in baseball since the All-Star break, which is just dumb to say out loud, but a 5.10 expected slugging on the season now. He's trended up, especially against righties. I'm not really finding myself getting to any of him.
How about these Boston bats today? There are a few teams that clearly stand out just from an overall run total and looking at the top stacks tool. One of them, very obviously, going to be the Arizona Diamondbacks against Ty Blach. Atlanta, always. Third highest top stack probability on this slate is Boston, with a very high total in this game. One of the higher stack scores on the slate in our top stacks tool as well. How much of the Red Sox are you looking to get to?
Yeah, I'm looking to get to more of the lefties. You have a 241 expected ISO for Josiah Gray on the season against lefties. Just a 102 expected ISO against righties. Now, if you want to put Justin Turner into some stacks and you want to incorporate that, I don't mind it. Trevor Story as well, 489 expected slugging through 12 batted ball events. That's fine too. But the guys that I'm getting to more of in like 2-mans and 3-mans and some of my 20 max stuff, I'm looking at Verdugo. I'm looking at Devers. I'm looking at Cassis, Jaron Duran. I'm okay with a little bit of him as well. But I will say Pablo Lopez really not giving up any power or anything that's all that interesting to right-handed batters on the season. But lefties, he's definitely got a lefty problem. That 241 expected ISO jumps off the page.
Man, I'll get to this in a little bit. I
don't want to get.
No, I will.
Do it now so we can pace it up later.
I want to get through 2 games by 5 o'clock, so then we can knock out 11 in the hour. I'm trying to pace this appropriately, but yeah, I have a question. I want your thoughts on something. But first, any interest in Washington bats? You want to talk Philly and Toronto here?
It's not Eric in an escape room, is it?
No.
Okay. I was just like, is Eric in an escape room? Yeah. I went from the Holiday Inn to the House of Horrors, so I'm all right with that.
I mean, to me, it just looks like a room with white walls. It's not, I wouldn't assume
It's
escape.
coming together. It's
Yeah.
coming together. And again, you got the things all over the place. Trust me, it's going to be a lot of fun. But as it stands, Washington, I'm already getting to a couple of pieces, but in no way, shape, or form a priority. I think the reason I'm probably going to get to them a little bit more than other people is that Pivetta is really, really popular at 7,800, and I completely understand why he is. I'm going to be getting myself away from it.
Philly and Toronto. I know that Zach Wheeler is very expensive, obviously, and that the Toronto Blue Jays have some good bats. But one thing that stands out to me, kind of in the same vein as like a Max Scherzer, when you look at the splits on a guy like Zach Wheeler, pretty significant when you consider that against left-handed hitters, he's striking out 22% of them. He's striking righties out at 33% this year. His K minus BB versus righties is 30%. He's walking them at 3%, 262 xFIP. That is very interesting when you consider that the Toronto Blue Jays heavy righty lineup running out 6 righties today. Yeah, he's expensive, but Zach Wheeler, if I got to pay up for him, I know it's a tough matchup, but I'd much rather it be against a heavy righty lineup than a mixed lineup or a lefty heavy lineup.
Yeah, totally. And a lot of this is that he's starting to throw this sinker a little bit to these righties. And over his last, two matchups, and last 30 days, you're looking at a guy with a 42.3% K rate against righties. He's also holding them under a 0.060 ISO, which again, I had to say that a couple times just to reiterate that the expected ISO is drastically different than the 184 ISO that he's got against them in actuality over those last 30 days. So we're starting to see him get back into Zach Wheeler form. Him and Aaron Nola. I mean, if Philadelphia could just go on a crazy hot run, this is a team that come October, you have 2 stalwarts, 2 guys that basically carried them to the World Series last season. They'd be live for it again. I think it's a pretty tough ask at this point in time for him, but Zach Wheeler, 4.4% walk rate, doesn't hurt himself, 284 xWOBA, limits base runners. He's one of those guys that on a slate like this, I get that it's an exorbitant price tag. I get that he's expensive, but that's kind of why you want to get there. 13.9% ownership, 17.5% top 2 percentage. That doesn't count the number of times that he's going to show up in a lineup where he could still win you a GPP, even if he finishes 3rd or 4th in terms of raw fantasy points. So Zach Wheeler at 11.6, he's in my single entry lineup. I am way over the field.
Okay, I get it. It's a really good spot. Not in the sense that Toronto's bad, but
Right.
just because they have so many righties, and you'll take that. He's not getting a lot of ownership either. Yeah,
No,
really.
I mean, Toronto doesn't have a choice. Their lefties aren't exactly good. Dalton Varsho's been a disappointment. Kevin Biggio's never been good. And Brandon Belt's just forced up there with a 35% K rate. Yahtzee. That's if you're going to ask for a lefty to be batting second in any lineup in all of baseball, you pick Brandon Belt.
That's who you want, no question. What about Yusei Kikuchi on the other side? 24% owned right now. According to our ownership projections, he is the second highest projected owned pitcher at 9K against Philly.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is another spot where it's kind of an easy short. I've never been a Kikuchi guy, but I get the ownership on a slate like this. 9K, there's a lot of different stacks you want to get to. The stacks are kind of the priority in terms of getting different, even though for me, I just find myself getting away from the Pivetta Kikuchi. I'm more likely to short Kikuchi in an extreme way than Pivetta, mainly because Pivetta has that K stuff that's pretty undeniable. 24.6% for Kikuchi here on the season. Looking at some of his splits, he's a guy who gets to face, the Schwarbers of the world, gets to face Bryce Harper, gets to face some of these lefties, but it's been an identical K rate on both sides of it. 24.7% against lefties on the season, 24.5%. So it's just a question of, X ISO, it's not exactly low there, 171 against lefties and 199 against righties. I just find myself getting to more Philadelphia. I find Alec Bohm plus 600 at FanDuel to be probably one of the best bets that you could possibly make today.
Andrew Martinez, yes, to answer your question. And AJFL, holy cow, is this the worst pitching slate in history? It's not even that it's that bad. It's just some of the pricing is terrible. Yeah, it's some of the pricing is so bad.
You wouldn't say that if Zach Wheeler was 10-5.
No, there's a lot of teams out there that have very low implied totals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams sub 4. So yeah, it's just some of the price points are hard to get to. We'll talk about it though as we work further into this. This total was at 8. It's down to 7.5. So I don't know how much of a priority hitters are going to be here for you, but right now Philly and Toronto both towards the bottom in the top stacks tool. As far as top stack probability, Toronto is at the bottom. Philly's bottom 7.
Yeah, I don't quite understand this. Again, because from the Kikuchi standpoint, he has a path of giving up power. It's very, very obvious in the numbers talked about. He's over a 170 ISO against lefties, over a 190, well, nearly 200 ISO against righties. And I find myself, again, getting to some of these righties in 2-mans, 3-mans. Alec Bohm, Nick Castellanos, talked about them last night on Lindy's Leans Likes Locks, thought that they made great targets. Wanted to see where those home run props showed up at, and they are both on the card for me today. I think that they are in a phenomenal spot. You don't need to get too cute. You don't need to play an expensive. Trey Turner has been overpriced all season long, although you're going to get 0 ownership on him today. JT Real Muto now in the 7-hole, a little less appealing, but Bone Castellanos, they're in one of my 3 max lineups as well. Just, again, targeting the second highest owned pitcher on the slate, who has an obvious path of giving up power. Never a bad way to go.
You know, it might be a bad way to go today. Bailey
Toronto.
Falter.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that would be bad.
He's cheap. He has a nice value score in the top pitchers tool, but I mean, there's not much to redeem him here, in my opinion, against the Mets. And then as far as the other side goes, David Peterson is getting ownership, 19%, 14% top 2 probability today, but the value there is what shows up for us. He obviously is one of the highest value score pitcher on our tool today on the slate. How much do you like Peterson at that ownership today against Pittsburgh?
I don't like it either. This sounds like I'm being very, very negative against every piece of chalk.
No, I think you have to be selective on this slate. I really do.
I think you do. And again, that's where I feel comfortable getting to a Zach Wheeler, because I feel like the floor and the ceiling are just there in a way that there isn't on other pitchers on this slate. I mean, I'm getting to an unbelievable amount of Emerson Hancock. We'll talk about him a little bit later against Kansas City, even though his top 2 percentage is nothing for us. I'll talk through some of the reasons that I think he's interesting, but I find myself getting away from some of these chalkier pieces and just playing the lower owned guys. I mean, that's been working really well for us. Yesterday with Brady Singer, that could not have possibly gone better for us. There are some spots where it's just like, I'm seeing equal pitchers. It's just that people are targeting the matchups maybe a little bit more. I guess Pivetta and Kikuchi makes sense because the K rate's there, but what are we doing with David Peterson other than the 24.1% K rate? He's been atrocious this season. 45% hard hit percentage, 270 expected batting average. The only thing he's been doing better is limiting some of the barrels, but you have Brian Hayes, Brian Reynolds, Andrew McCutchen, Connor Joe, Henry Davis at the top of this lineup. Peguero seems to be all right. 372 expected slugging. I expect speed to show up for him later. Same thing with Palacios and Triolo, but 1 through 8, Pittsburgh, not exactly pushovers. It is nice to get the double catcher. I guess depends how you look at Henry Davis. He's been playing outfield here as opposed to the catcher position he came up in the minors at, but I feel pretty comfortable being underweight to David Peterson again as well. So that's 3 chalky pitchers and 3 guys I'm underweight to.
Since we started doing this show together, we've been on the same page with a lot of these cheap unowned pitchers or lower owned pitchers. I didn't think we would be with Hancock. I spent a lot of time talking about him this morning with Matt. You would really think that at his price, he'd be, I honestly, now yesterday he was 4K and originally it looked like he might pitch, which didn't make all that much sense. But even at that mid 5K price point, why not?
I have so much of him. He's in over half my lineups right now.
I don't think it's that crazy. 9% against that heavy Kansas City team in a park that suppresses home runs. We'll talk about that one, but yeah, he's super cheap.
I'm excited to talk him. I think he's the best piece of leverage we have on this entire slate at this given point in time.
Yeah, and he probably projects around like a league average strikeout rate too. You know, so yeah, he's interesting. Very, very interesting. But we'll talk about this one to wrap it up. No Bailey Falter for you, I assume.
No.
Mets bats, Pittsburgh bats. How do you play these guys? And then we'll talk New York Yankees in Atlanta, where it's a 10.5 run total, and Braves are huge favorites again against Severino.
I'm going to weirdly call Pittsburgh more of a priority. They're our most leveraged team in the top stacks tool. It's a much larger slate today than it was yesterday, but I'm looking at them with a 1.9% ownership share going up against David Peterson, who's pulling ownership. 3 straight teams where I think, it's not a bad way to play MLB DFS to, if you're playing 20 max, if you're playing 150, get yourself an allotment of these stacks and be overweight to them against the most popular pitchers. And being underweight to the pitchers, it just makes sense that that's something that's going to show up in your lineups as well. So I'm getting to more of the Pittsburgh side, although if you just made me choose based on the matchups, of course, I'd be going to the Mets against Falter.
Yankees in Atlanta. Luis Severino is just giving up a ton of power. It's been a dreadful season for him this season. Unfortunately, yesterday, Clark Smith's family and friends couldn't will him to a victory. So how?
Sorry, Sean V.
Yeah, we talked this morning. How in the heck is it going to work for Luis Severino? Guy gives up so much power. It's warm. It's hot in Atlanta against the Braves. They have another run total north of 6. I mean, you're not playing Luis Severino. At least you shouldn't be. But on the Braves side, how do you not have interest here and just try and find a way to play them, even though a handful of these guys are very expensive?
6.75 expected ERA, a 5.13 xFIP, a negative 0.7 WAR on the season. I mean, Luis Severino is unconscionably bad. Is that a word? Unconscionably? Am I saying that correctly? You're my grammar king.
Yeah, I mean, well, I feel like that's unconscionable.
It's unconscionable that he is still in the major leagues and hasn't been DFA'd. I'll put it that way.
Yeah,
531 expected slugging, 18% K rate. And the Yankees are supposed to be this team that goes out and overspends for everybody. And, they've got pieces like a Michael King in the bullpen, Wandy Peralta, Ian Hamilton, but these guys are going to waste away come October because they're not going to be there. And it's mainly because of starting pitching. Trading away Jordan Montgomery for Harrison Bader, I'm just going to throw it out there. Don't think that was a good decision. I didn't think it at the time. Definitely don't think it now. And now they get to have Luis Severino go trot out there against Acuna. Michael Harris still in the 2-hole. Love that. Across the board, I mean, Luis Severino's been one of the worst starters in baseball. He's got just a 39.6% ground ball rate, which is by far his lowest of his career this year. There's no redeeming qualities.
No, there's no redeeming qualities at all. The redeeming qualities are that the Braves bats could be let loose, to be unleashed again. 6.4 run implied total. I honestly, if you're just looking at this from you take salary out of it, you're price agnostic. I don't think they're that far behind Arizona, even though Arizona's got a 7.4 run implied total. I mean, Atlanta just every night goes out there and crushes the baseball.
Yeah, because they have the talent too. And now they get to face a Luis Severino, especially with some of these lefties. So, I mean, obviously Acuna, Riley, they're 2 of the best hitters in baseball. You can, of course, get to them. But specifically like a Michael Harris, who is just too cheap, I think, for this opportunity now that he's gone from the 9-hole to the 2-hole. Matt Olson, who is on pace to hit 60 jacks. They're going to face Luis Severino and his 328 ISO against lefties this season. What are we doing here? 266 expected ISO, just an 8.93% swinging strike rate. My God, Luis Severino, if it was by any other name was a rose called, he'd be out of the bigs.
You're right. And I mean, it's very possible that I don't know. I don't know how much longer you can keep starting this guy. Does it matter at this point? I couldn't tell you, but it's been ugly for him. He's allowing to lefties, just to your point, 3.1 home runs per 9. 3.1. Oh my God.
Yeah.
5% K minus B, 14% strikeout rate versus lefties. You may have mentioned that and I missed it, but that is outrageous. That is unconscionable.
There it is. See, I knew we could come together there. But yeah, they should be the second highest owned stack on this slate, and they're not. So there we go. I'm pretty excited about Atlanta today. If you're trying to find some reason to get away from Arizona, which I don't think you should today, I think you're all right rostering some Arizona and finding some Atlanta, especially because of the salary savings that you can get with certain Arizona bats. Atlanta is just a prime stack. They are pretty much every single day, but on larger slates, especially where you can kind of pick and choose your ways of putting the lineups together. I will say, though, if Nicky Lopez goes off today, I quit. Nicky Lopez at 8 or 9%, breaking another slate yesterday. I am over this dude. He is one of the worst batters, period. He is not there for offensive purposes. And now he's had 37 and 22 fantasy points from the 9-hole in 2 of his last 3 games. Do not expect that to continue.
We may not necessarily love Yankee bats from a DFS perspective. We'll get Eric's opinion on that in a second. But here's where you should love one specific Yankee bat. Jock Market threw a massive discount on Aaron Judge today. Eric, you look at any traditional book, hits plus runs plus RBIs on Aaron Judge, he's at 2.5 around even money. They got it down to 0.5 over there on Jock Market for their pick'em product. Also 100% first match deposit bonus up to $100. Always going to throw out these free squares to you guys or the discounted picks whenever we get them. Through the link in the description. Jordan just threw it in chat. You're getting 100% first match deposit bonus. So you put 100 in, now you got 200. You put 50 in, now you got 100. Hell, you want to put 10 in just so you can play this today and take advantage of a very plus EV spot. Now you got 20. They're doubling your deposit, whatever it is, up to $100. But maybe we don't love Aaron Judge in DFS. Who knows? Against Bryce Elder. 0.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs. 85-degree weather in Atlanta. They got it down to that. It's 2.5 at even money. Everywhere else, that is a beautiful spot. It's just, I mean, look, nothing is a free square unless it's like obviously a free square. Massive, massive discount on this one today. Jock Market link in the description and chat. Cool pick'em product, but also take your free money, take your plus EV card here, your plus EV square, go make some lineups out of it and get the free money opportunity right there. All right, let's keep going here. Let's talk about the Yankee bats. What do you think?
I mean, Aaron Judge as a one-off is never a bad idea. So check out Jock Market, 0.5. I mean, 0.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs. That's pretty usable for a Jock Market
hold on.
card.
You got it. When you use the link, you got to use the promo code Stochastic10.
There you
go. STOKASTIC10, like all one word. Use that. Otherwise, you won't get the promo. But use that, and you'll get the promo bonus, the sign-up bonus. Use the link, and then once you go in, your promo is going to be Stochastic10. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, no, I love the Aaron Judge one-off anytime that you're going to get him at any kind of reduced ownership. And has he been homering every single slate? Has he been smashing every single slate this season? No, but now you're running into him as a reduced piece as a result. And, well, he's still got a 756 expected slugging and a 485x WOBA. So a 64.5% hard hit percentage against Mr. Bryce Elder. The Elder Wand, it doesn't work like it does in Harry Potter, that's for sure. DJ LeMahieu, Jake Bowers. I'm getting a smattering of other pieces. I'm avoiding IKF at the top of this lineup. It seems like he's just pulling a little bit too much ownership on a couple of these slates for me, but finding other cheap pieces on a larger slate than we had yesterday to kind of get different with my value, similar to what I talked about with Seattle there. But Judge, Stanton, 2 one-offs that pretty easy to get behind those against Elder.
Also, 8 straight games with at least 1 hit plus run plus RBI for Judge. So good time to get in on that if you haven't done so yet.
Awesome.
All right. I'm talking the promo here, not for DFS.
Oh, I know.
Detroit and Minnesota. Detroit plus 160 on the road, 8.5 total. Alex Faedo, Bailey Ober. I mean, interesting spot for Bailey Ober. Do you want to pay north of 10,000 for him today?
No, I'm a Twins fan, and it's pretty hard to get behind this. I think we've seen Bailey Ober's ceiling already this season. It's really hard. He's a 6'9" guy who really throws no velocity whatsoever, and is just sitting there peppering guys with this 4-seamer that doesn't have a lot to it, and then a changeup. And there's some serviceable hitters on the other side. Akil Padu, Riley Green, Matt Vierling, Spencer Torkelson, 1 through 5. I find them to be a pretty serviceable baseball team. Now, the back half leaves a lot to be desired from Cabrera McKinstry, Isan Diaz, who we've now seen play, I feel like, for every team. He's gone from Miami to San Francisco to Detroit now. And Eric Haas has been a major regression candidate for the last 2 years, and it's finally showing up. So it's a good spot with the back half of that lineup, but God, just a 24.3% K rate sitting north of 10-2. It's more of a price thing. He's 17%, and yet another pitcher, it feels like, who's popular that I'm just not finding myself to.
Okay. It makes sense to me. It's almost like he's priced above his ceiling, honestly,
Correct.
right now.
But I believe we've seen the best pitching out of him. He still has a 21-degree average launch angle on balls in play. And there's some guys who lofted in Torkelson, Carpenter. I think they're another great pairing. It seems like I'm pulling out like two bats against these popular pitchers to be targeting, but Torkelson, Carpenter, I absolutely love getting to them as one-offs. If you're hand building, if you're throwing some stuff together and you're trying to find a way to get different, I could do worse than finding my way to those two bats.
Any interest in Faedo against, at the very least, a high strikeout team, but not a guy that's going to inspire much confidence in you?
Yeah, I kind of do. Now, part of it is the ownership, of course, where he's not pulling anything, like legitimately anything. So that's fun. 6%, I think, over on DraftKings right now. We've got him with the top 2 percentage around 5.8%. But going from AAA to this season, and then looking at his numbers from last year, he had an 18% K rate. He's made some improvements to that slider that have kind of brought him up to around 21.5% this season. And then you brought it up. It's a Minnesota Twins lineup that isn't afraid to strike out against everybody. The highest K rate against righties, 27.5% on the season, albeit with a 108 WRC plus. So this is kind of our first stop along the I'm going to play both sides tour.
I don't hate it at all. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's pulling, what, 5% ownership right now? 5.9%, 7K. Sometimes Minnesota sometimes they're just going to destroy you. And then other times they're just not going to show up, and they strike out at an insane clip. So you always have that in the back pocket. It's just, you never, Adam talked about this all the time. He loves playing both sides of Minnesota games and Seattle games because high strikeout rates, but particularly when they're in decent enough ballparks, they can hit for power too. So
it also feels like a lot of people, and maybe this is something that I'm just kind of thinking of, like recency bias combined with the way that some people are still playing MLB DFS. People get scared away from playing both sides. They kind of want to make a stand. They want to be right about something. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make when you're playing in like the 20 max, or when you're playing in some of these other things. It's okay to just have 20 lineups in the $4 and to make some stands, but also play the other side. It's okay to understand that like there's an opportunity to get to an under-owned Alex Faedo, and there's an opportunity to get to Royce Lewis coming back for the first time in a long time. One of the most touted AAA guys, one of the most touted prospects in all of baseball for the Twins. Carlos Correa, Matt Wallner's been incredible. We've been targeting him in the home run department nonstop here. Ridden that to the top. A guy who's plus 850, plus 800, now sitting inside of plus 450 to homer almost every single slate. Ryan Jeffers, 423 expected ISO, hitting the cover off the ball. What do they all have in common? Everybody in this lineup has north of a 21.5% strikeout rate. A lot of guys like Gallo, Michael A. Taylor, these guys are north of 34% strikeout rate. So it is okay to be playing both sides. And I think this is a very obvious example of why.
Talk about Oakland and St. Louis. Spencer Watkins, Spencer with an S, not to start the name, but instead of a C. It's interesting. Dakota Hudson. All right. So Spencer Watkins, first of all, he's thrown 20 innings at AAA. Well, no, I'm sorry. 46, so he got moved around this season at AAA. Just looking, because he had a stint at with the Orioles last year, right? But at AAA this year, 46 and a third innings, 15% strikeout rate, dude. That's not great going up to the major league level.
He's not a major league pitcher. And this I almost said Orioles because Spencer Watkins, whenever I see that, this Oakland team, they're just looking for fresh bodies to come in and eat up innings. They're not going to try to push anybody towards the end of the season. I'm going to start showing some apprehension with guys like JP Sears, with guys like Paul Blackburn, who's been routinely throwing over 100 pitches. And this is just a prime example. They're not trying to win baseball games. They don't need to. They just need guys to eat innings. He's got a 6.94 expected ERA and a 5.07 expected ERA his last two seasons in the bigs. He's got a decent fastball. He at least gets a lot of spin on it. But overall, this cutter doesn't play at the big league level. The curveball doesn't play at the big league level. He doesn't get the swings and misses that you're really looking for. And that four-seamer is complete dust. So it's a spot here where pretty obvious that only interest that I'm going to have is on the other side of it with St. Louis.
Dakota Hudson isn't the same pitcher as Miles Michaelis from yesterday because Michaelis was $1,200 more expensive, but they're both pulling ownership or pulled ownership on Michaelis. 20% today to Hudson, 7% top two probability though, big negative leverage. And worth pointing out that Dakota Hudson, also not somebody that's going to rack up strikeouts at an elite clip or even close to that. Understandably, you've seen Dakota Hudson in his last 2 starts ago, was it right? 7 strikeouts against Minnesota. Pretty strong start, but in 2 Ks against Tampa last time out, this guy just does not generate a lot of swings and misses. I mentioned that because he's 20% on a 13-game slate.
Yeah, 17.6% K rate against lefties, 15.1% against righties on the season. He has an expected ISO above 1.8, over 180 against both sides of the plate. Now, 306 BABIP against lefties, maybe a tiny bit unlucky, but pretty standard there. About 300 being your baseline there. Against righties, just nothing really all that appealing, and not getting the strikeouts you'd hope he would get on the opposite or on the same handedness. So, I mean, just remind me if you've heard this before. I'm going to be shorting another popular pitcher on this slate, partially because if Emerson Hancock is going to be 5,500, so he's way cheaper than these guys. He's even 300 cheaper than Dakota Hudson, and he's going to be pulling truly less than half of the ownership of Emerson Hancock. I'm just going to jam him, play a lot of Zach Wheeler, play some Jordan Montgomery, play some other under-owned guys, Bobby Miller, one of my highest owned pitchers on this slate. I'm just getting myself to some guys that are pulling no ownership. And I'll just fade the guys like Dakota Hudson who have no strikeout opportunity and are purely only being played because of matchup.
I mean, it's when I was saying earlier today, and we both talked about it on the show, you have to be selective. It's not selective in the sense that you're just taking these massive stands and fading great pitchers either, right? Like, in my opinion, a lot of these from a talent perspective, some of them even from a matchup perspective with Hancock against Kansas City, they feel like lateral moves.
Yep.
Like it's not, I don't see this as you being like, I'm going to make a much worse play on paper because the ownership is significantly lower.
I mean, it just gets me excited for NFL, doesn't it? Where we get to say opportunity cost 500 times, but it's so true where it's like, oh, nobody's going to play a 6% owned Deontay Johnson who had 0 touchdowns last year in a spot that's like identical to Terry McLaurin, who kind of, for all intents and purposes, you have Sam Howell, you have Kenny Pickett. It's an identical spot. We're kind of getting ready for that with this game theory, with this idea of like Dakota Hudson. There's nothing that's making him different that's going to get him automatically to 7 or 8 Ks besides if you just say, oh, we're going to look at matchup. But like they put Tony Kemp to lead off, and they've done this a couple of times where Tony Kemp randomly shows up in the one hole and then, well, good luck striking him out. 9.1% K rate on the season. Sure, you get Geloff, Rooker, Brown. They're striking out above average, but they're also above average hitters with better than a 456 expected slugging for all 3 of them. So I am landing on Oakland a lot, like a lot. 85, 75% humidity. St. Louis, hello. Like them on the other side too, but Oakland, a team that I am well overweight to today.
What about St. Louis?
Yeah, St. Louis is in an awesome spot. Spencer Watkins is not. He can't spell his name right. His parents couldn't do that, so he obviously isn't going to pitch. Yeah, I was going to say, but it obviously was genetic, and it passed down to him, and he got to the big leagues. So pat him on the back. But how he stayed there, besides maybe blackmail, I don't know. So it's a spot you should play all the St. Louis bats. Lars Nootbaar, Goldschmidt, Arenado. You get some value with Alec Burleson now batting cleanup there. Arenado's been a little bit dusty, it would seem, of late, but of course, this will be the spot that he goes for 2 of them. You got Kanizer Sose, if you enjoy that one in the 7-hole to a catcher. And Tommy Edman goes from first leadoff to 9-hole. Doesn't change him as a hitter, just a completely different situation. They want him batting leadoff against lefties. They want him facing, on his opposite side there against Spencer Watkins. It's not going to be as good for him, but yeah, 1 through 9, I have St. Louis Cardinals.
Lucas Giolito is $10,700 today in this Angels and Texas Rangers game. That seems pretty prohibitive, if you ask me, especially considering the Rangers have a 5-run total. Like you're paying almost 11K for against a team that doesn't strike out at, an elevated clip. I'm not saying Giolito is a bad pitcher. I just, quite frankly, don't this price point among all of them. I'd say even more than Montgomery. But if you want to put him in that same bucket, I'm fine with it. I would say this price tag makes the least amount of sense of anything I'm seeing on this slate.
But I don't care because he has strikeouts and he has no ownership. So in a vacuum, should I play a guy who's 10-7, who's got a 10.7% barrel percentage, a 446 expected slugging, and gives up crazy power to both sides? No, I probably shouldn't. But it's a guy with strikeout upside, 25.1% K rate. There are at least some strikeouts in Nathaniel Lowe. You've got Garcia, Mitch Garver. As I spread it out, I have him as somebody who should be higher owned than this, and I'm going to have close to 10% in my allotment of 40 lineups that I currently have. I'm okay. I'm okay getting to Lucas Giolito. Again, he's just somebody that you're playing because of the strikeout upside, and absolutely nobody's on him. But I completely agree with you. If he weren't 10-7, if he were something cheaper, he'd be more popular. If he were more expensive, nobody would want to touch him in any way, shape, or form. So, like, yeah, he's completely overpriced. There's a huge downside there. Don't play him in your single entry or 3-max, but in large field GPPs, absolutely a 0.6% ownership.
All right. All right. We had a question. What's the difference in ownership between Arizona and Colorado? Aggregate ownership on these teams is wildly different. Top stack tool, we have ownership on Arizona at almost 18%, Colorado around 6%. But Colorado is a pretty interesting team as well, and we'll talk about them. First, let's get through this game. On the other side, once you get past Lucas Giolito, who you are interested in at 10-7, Jordan Montgomery, $11,000. What's the ceiling on Jordan Montgomery? Now, there are some strikeouts in this lineup, and they're not 100%, the Angels, but $11,000, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, if I were playing FanDuel today, I think at 9,800, he's 15.7% owned. He's the highest owned pitcher there. It's pretty easy to look at the box score and just see 5 consecutive quality starts. Pitching deep into games is only, it's 4 of the last 5 he's had a quality start. He gave up 5 against the Cubbies. This is a complete overprice in every single way, shape, or form. But against the Angels, there's an obvious path for strikeouts there, so you can't really besmirch that. And then you look at what he does against both sides of it. He's right around 21-22% in terms of strikeout rate to both handedness, but he limits lefties in such a prominent way that I do think if he can just get by the Ohtani bomb, I mean, there's no other lefty that they have in this lineup for a reason today because he has been that shut down against them. And then against righties, he's still been pretty darn serviceable, sitting there with a 178 expected ISO, 292 BABIP, and across the board, he's never going to impress you with K stuff, but there's a level of security that you can get to on Jordan Montgomery. And then if he runs into 6-7 strikeouts, there's a definite upside.
Okay. Any interest in hitters from either side against astronomically priced pitchers?
Definitely Texas Rangers interest. I mean, Lucas Giolito, he'll run himself into some issues from time to time. He's got that 26.4% K rate to lefties, but a 228 ISO, 231 expected ISO. Same thing against righties, 181 expected ISO, 199 ISO. So there's a definite upside just to try to target a couple of those pieces. And I mean, Texas has routinely been one of the best offenses in baseball, especially against righties on the season, a 118 WRC plus on the aggregate. They're still missing Josh Young, but that gives you a JP Martinez and Ezekiel Duran, Travis Jankowski, some salary savings at the bottom of this. So pretty easy for me to talk myself into 5-man stacks of Texas. They were the stone cold nuts yesterday. They're a really good offense. They're facing a guy who gives up power.
All right, quick break for me to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
You know Jordan scratching his head, wondering what I'm about to say. Don't worry, it's nothing. You know the girl on the plane that motherfucker is not real girl?
Yeah, she's so hot.
So hot.
I can say that now. I can say that. My wife's yonder way. I'm in my own little building.
Dude, you know you should get for your new studio? Did you see that amazing drawing that I retweeted it the other day? It's an amazing drawing where the person draws it and it's like one seat of the plane has Santa Claus, the other has like a reptilian, the other I'll send it to you, man.
All the things that aren't real, right?
It's so so
cool.
sick, dude. I'm telling you.
So I'm going to put a hexagon thing over this. I'm going to have a TV here, but I'm going to have some artwork in some capacity around. Got to
get it, even if it's like a smaller one. It'll be a prize of your office. I promise you. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I'm sure some of chat has seen it. If you follow me on Twitter, you saw me retweet it the other day. It's like, anyway, how absurd is it that these days you can get famous for something like that? I mean, this girl became a viral sensation, just opened up a Twitter account, and now she's parlaying this insanity into like profit. 106,000 followers just opened up a Twitter account because she hallucinated on an airplane. Isn't that crazy?
If you're hot, you can do anything. You can achieve the world.
That's true.
It just is what it is.
Yeah, I would just get handcuffed.
Let her handcuff you, or what are we getting at?
Yeah. But no, I'm saying if I did that on a plane,
nobody would know who you are.
No, it would go viral for all the wrong reasons.
Also, she's got crazy hot eyes. You have those crazy witch eyes, man. It's like Alexandra Daddario from the first season of True Detective. What? No, I'm saying that she does.
Oh,
she's got like those witch eyes. Like she goes close on. She doesn't blink the whole time. She's just staring at you, and she's somewhat nice to look at.
The girl in the Twitter account, though, on the avatar and the video looks different than the one in the. I'm not sure
I agree.
She might not be real, but I don't care. Willing to find out. Anyway,
AI is awesome, isn't it? I'm okay with it now.
But crazy, man. I'm gonna send you that though. I'm telling you got to get it. It's awesome. Well cool. Worth it too.
I saw that.
All right. Where are we at?
Doesn't matter. Let's just talk about her for another 30
Tiffany
minutes.
Gomez.
Oh man.
Even a nice name, huh?
Yeah. Which eyes,
Chicago. Touki Toussaint, Kyle Hendricks. How about the ownership coming to these fine fellas today? 13% on Kyle Hendricks, only 5% to Toussaint. 4.1 run implied total for the White Sox. That's why Hendricks is getting a little love here. Just a very low implied total for the White Sox, like bottom 5 or 6 on the slate. 5.2 for the Cubs, though, against Touki Toussaint.
Yeah, he's a little bit overowned. If Kyle Hendricks at 7,400 shows up in some lineups, I mean, you know that he doesn't have the strikeout stuff of a Pivetta, but he also has a better matchup, I would say, going up against this White Sox team. And overall, you kind of know what you're running into, where it would take an extreme outlier performance for him to go out and lead this score in fantasy points. But at his price point, 7,400, he's inducing more ground balls. He's had a couple of outings against St. Louis and the White Sox specifically recently, where he's had 12 and 13 ground balls he's induced. If he puts up 20, you'd be ecstatic on this kind of a slate. And so, you know, you're just playing him, hoping other guys in the range fail. So not really a priority, but he's falling into a couple of lineups for me. I will say Touki Toussaint is at least a little bit interesting. Coming off of back-to-back 9K outings, his stuff has improved drastically in the last year and a half, whether it was his stint with the Angels now to the White Sox. I liked it. I liked a lot of his stuff when he was there with Atlanta. It's starting to play up a little bit more for him here. He's sitting at a price point at 6,900. That's, well, a lot cheaper than some of these other guys pulling ownership that are just, I don't think, as good. So Touki Toussaint, my first, 5.4%. Well, Alex Fado, I talked about him too, but I am well overweight to Touki Toussaint. I think he's a nice point of leverage on this slate.
Is this also a game, though, where you're willing to play both sides of it, looking at a +5 plus implied total for the Cubs?
Yeah, I mean, the Cubs have power, and that's kind of what you're targeting, especially on DraftKings. You're hoping that Cody Bellinger can continue to hit above his head, 449 expected slugging, despite a 31.4% hard hit percentage. You got Heimer Candelario, a decent enough piece, 332 ex-Woba, Christopher Morel, Saya Suzuki. And then you get some cheapies in Tachman up there at top. I guess not as cheap anymore. Ian Happ, he's cheaper. I'm all right getting to this team 1 through 9. I mean, this is a team that you're not giving up a whole heck of a lot there. They're not very popular for a reason there. Touki Toussaint also has a pretty prominent walk problem, 15.9% walk rate on the season. If you can get the line moving, you could run into some really nice stacks there. And pretty much everybody except for Gomes in that Cubs lineup will run at least a little bit. So there's some decent enough upside there, considering Yasmani Grandal has one of the worst pop-up times amongst any catchers in baseball. He is catching and not DHing today. That's always something I'm paying attention to. So one of the weaker arms in baseball as well, 77.7 mile per hour throw time. So I am looking at the Cubs as a stealing and power upside team.
What do we got? 8 games down?
Yeah.
5 to go? We got 8 games down, 5 to go. We're doing okay, actually. 23 minutes. Not bad.
Not bad.
Seattle and Kansas City. Let's talk about Emerson Hancock, baby. Let's do it. against Jordan Lyles. 9-run total. Seattle minus 142 on the money line today. I think we already talked a decent amount about it. We talked a lot about him this morning as well. I don't think either of us are looking at this going, hey, man, this guy is going to have a phenomenal start and he's better than all these other cheap pitchers. But he is cheaper than all these other cheap pitchers. He does have a good matchup in a unfriendly park from a home run perspective by far, Kauffman Stadium. And another thing to consider too is that he's not just cheaper in a fine park, but he's also getting a lot less ownership than so many of these other guys. I mean, look, you could go out there, and I don't think anyone's going to fault you for playing Dakota Hudson or Peterson or some of these guys in good spots them in their own right. But 9% compared to 20% to Dakota Hudson to 19% David Peterson, it's a spot that we got to talk about for sure.
Yeah, and it's uncomfortable anytime you get somebody that shows up like this in your lineups who had a 13.4% swinging strike rate at AA. He never even played at the AAA level, so we don't even have a sample size of that. So it's hard to look at anything that he did in AA and say, oh, that 26% K rate is going to translate. That's not why you're playing him. You're playing him because even if you were to have a 15% K rate, that's through one start. So whoop-de-doo, Basil, what does it all mean? You're still running into a guy who's 5,500, who's sub 10%, and gets to face a Royals team that you know is going to at least have strikeouts available to it at the same time that they're a team that can have some upside. A 23.5% K rate there against righties on the season, just an 86 WRC plus. If other people are going to be uncomfortable to click that button on Hancock, I'm absolutely going to go there because you just don't know what it's going to be, what that upside is going to look like. Obviously, pitching in Kansas City, it's not as good as what it would be pitching at home for him there in Seattle like he got in that first start against San Diego, but some of his pitches look pretty live to me. Going through some of the StatCast data, the fastball was sitting right around 92, 93, but a 107 expected batting average against. The slider, 103 expected batting average against in that start. Maybe he just had it for one day. Maybe some of this AA stuff will translate in a way that Zips and Steamer aren't projecting. So he's a highly touted first rounder. He was sitting in 2020. I think he was like the 5th or 6th pick from Seattle back in the day out of Georgia. But Emerson Hancock is somebody that there's at least been buzz about at the AA level. Surprised to not see him play in AAA at all and get immediately called up. But hey, we're getting reduced ownership as a result.
You think 200 likes is doable? We need 55 over the remaining 20 minutes of this show. Your thoughts?
I'm here for it. I mean, we had over 1,000 people. We had 1,050 live at the end of the deeper dive yesterday. Why not try to just push the like count up? If you're enjoying the analysis, again, I'm out here, bare bones in it as I'm figuring out what I want my studio and my setup to look like. But I'm here grinding for you, trying to get all of the best info to you. Lofty, I know he's looking to football too as well, but he's out here putting in the work, couple of shows a day. If you appreciate that, smash that like button for us. And if not for us, do it for Jordan Klein so we can get him some sleeves.
Yeah, I liked the no sleeve Joy. He looks sexy.
If you're going to do that every day, get tatted up, son. Like, that would look fire on you.
A nice little sunflower.
Just a little rosy right on the forearm.
Yeah. Yeah.
DBC right there. DBC. Dubro chill.
Don't. No. We'll hit 200 though. Appreciate you guys. We love Jordan Klein. No, in all seriousness though, all that stuff helps us, man. We try and put out the best free content we can. We try and put out the best free content in the industry on YouTube. And all that stuff helps us keep the lights on around here. And you guys drive these shows for sure. Without you watching, we ain't got dick if we don't have you guys watching this show. So thank you. All right. You like bats from this game? I don't want to talk too much about Jordan Lyles unless you have some interest there.
Yeah, I liked Kansas City yesterday. Obviously, Bobby Witt was the one piece that you kind of needed, and it was due to an error that turned into an inside the park home run. So is what it is. But Bobby Witt's been hitting over 410 since the All-Star break. He's really figured out some stuff overall as well. Like getting to the Kansas City side, even against my guy Emerson Hancock, I'm going to have a couple of insurance stacks, if you will, on that side of it. But then on the other side, Seattle, going up against Jordan Lyles. Jordan Lyles is just He's so bad. Just a 16.1% K rate and 16.8% K rate against lefties and righties, respectively. A 221 expected ISO against lefties, 206 expected ISO against righties. I like a lot of what I see. I like Dominic Canzone as a really, really low-owned one-off type piece of value. Turbo slate special as well. Marlowe's been pretty darn good. Mike Ford in this lineup yet again. Yeah, top to bottom, Seattle. They're going to be a team that I get too overweight to as well. 200
likes. Boom. Look at that.
Incredible. Look at you. You're kind of the master. You're kind of the master at that stuff.
Kind of? No, I'm just
You
kidding.
are. You are.
No, it's because I have a genuine appreciation and admiration for most of the people who watch and support our show.
It's fair.
I think it translates as me being authentic. You know what I mean?
Do you think so?
You as well, though. So. You're the same way. I wouldn't take nothing away from you. Crushing the analysis game today. Come on, man.
Trying.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it. And thank you, Chris Williams, for the super chat. He said, atone for your sins. It's free to hit the like. Don't be a Muppet. Yeah, no, we're there. I mean, we're at 212. We're at 212. We're killing it. It's a good ratio, too. It's a nice ratio in the 800 watching. But back to some baseball here. I think we could talk Arizona and Colorado. Is it time to talk Coors?
Yeah, it's so easy to talk Coors today, though.
That's okay. That's fine because we'll still have 3 games after that. Live Before Allowed coming up after this. It's Greg Ehrenberg. It's Neil Orfield. Because unless you're on both.
I'm not. No, that would be wild. Do a 75. Oh, did it say that? Do a 75-minute show followed by an hour live before lock in my sweat dungeon right now. The AC hasn't been plugged in yet, so I need to get that thing going. So again, I am out here grinding. It's probably 90 degrees in here at the moment.
No central air in that joint for what you paid for it?
Well, no. So this is the back house. This is like, so I'm converting the whole back house to a studio.
Gotcha.
So I've got like windows here. I've got an AC unit that they installed above. And then I've got like a putting green that I put over here on this side with the putters. I'm going to have the TV directly behind me like I had in my old place. So we're going to be set up here. But today we're doing a little makeshift and just get my sweat on while I'm at it too. Definitely not going to go to the gym after this.
No, you don't need it. You take off a couple LBs. Mm-hmm. All right. So earlier it was Slade Ciccone that was supposed to be pitching this one in relief. I think that's changed, right? So now it's Jarvis, I think.
Yeah, so you're going to get Mantipley who's going to open, and then it's assumed that we're going to get this Bryce Jarvis fellow who's going to be coming from AAA Reno. One of the hardest things in terms of analysis for betting analysis that I do the night before is trying to decide what's real and what's not in the PCL. They play baseball on the fucking moon. It's Albuquerque. It's Reno. It's places where the ball just flies, and you never know what you're going to get. But Bryce Jarvis, he's been serviceable. But he hasn't really worked past 45, 50 pitches in an outing here. They've been trying to build him up. That's why he's going to be the guy coming in after Mantipley. It's basically going to be a glorified bullpen game. And so it's easy to talk about because there's no pitcher that you really need to be focused on from either one because you're not going to play any tie block either. So pitching is a complete write-off for me in Arizona and Colorado. And then you're playing in Coors. Arizona's under-owned yet again for another slate. You can look at some of the ownership yesterday and you kind of know what you're going to run into. It was 25% on a 8-game slate. On 13%, on a 13-game slate, you're running into a team that's 17.5% ownership share on DK, nearly a 20% top stack score. They are blasting the stack score by over 11. Yeah, exactly 11 here at the moment on DraftKings in our top stacks tool. So Freds, you play Arizona. And then if you want to get different with Colorado, I'm okay with it. It's just not going to be a team that I prioritize. Not a ton of power. I have some Nolan Jones. Nice to have Charlie Blackmon back, but they're going to start off with a lefty. They're going to move to a couple of different arms in the bullpen in long relief that aren't the easiest guys to go out and target. But how could you not target a Colorado team on the other side that's in Coors that's going to be facing, I would call them a below average bullpen at least.
Yeah. Little ownership. You're not getting some of the same price discounts that you've had on Colorado at times this year in Coors.
Fair.
Right. So that's probably the one drawback here. Top pitchers tool, we have him 3.9% top value percentage, which is one of the lower ones on the slate. But they're also sub 6% aggregate ownership. We do have this team positively leveraged. And like you said, you can't really be too concerned about these arms for Arizona. And as bad as Colorado's offense is, 6.1 run implied totals, nothing to sneeze at, brother.
No, definitely isn't. And if you go to roster resource on FanGraphs, it does a good job of encapsulating who's going to probably show up because they have the AAA, they have the Bryce Jarvis written in there. He was a guy who's a touted first rounder. I think he's going to be decent enough, but he doesn't really show it right now. Hard to show that at AAA Reno, though. Again, the PCL, really difficult to account for. Joe Mantiply, he went 11 pitches yesterday, so I doubt he's playing anything outside of this first inning. And then I will say Kyle Nelson and Tyler Gilbert are the two lefties that they have in there. I also don't expect Colorado to do a lot of pinch hitting because they're just going to let their guys play towards the end of the season. And, it doesn't seem like they're going to put Cole Tucker into play above Brendan Rodgers anytime soon. Maybe you see a pinch hit from him, but I think it's a team that's pretty safe, even though it's a bullpen game. That's different than other scenarios where you could run into a Jordan Luplow from Minnesota. You could run into the entire San Francisco roster being subbed out for a bullpen scenario. So I think Colorado, they're coming in a little bit underappreciated considering this isn't your typical bullpen situation. And I do think their guys just stay out there.
So I just pulled up the lineup generator, right? And I just want to see what it's going to give us. Okay. Because it's simming lineups thousands of times. It's giving you plus EV lineups. All I did was selected all stack types, all lineup types. So I didn't go contrarian, chalky, balance, just all lineup types. Didn't lock anyone. I skipped that. I don't want to lock. I just want to see what we get. A lot of Arizona. Now, I understand why you might not have a ton of Arizona, but a lot of Arizona, a decent amount of Atlanta as well. A lot of Arizona, a lot of Atlanta. Also, and what I did was, by the way, I just saved the first 20 lineups that were given to me. You can discard the ones you don't like and save the one you like, but for the sake of time, I just saved all of those. Like a decent amount of just sprinkled in kind of everywhere Colorado bats. This does feel like one of those games where even if you're not stacking those teams specifically, you're probably going to get a lot of one-offs and two-off spots from Arizona and Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you needed yesterday. The winner, Christian Walker, put up 23. You ended up running into Bobby Witt Jr. with an outlier game, and then you played Texas. And that's the way a lot of MLB DFS goes. Now, it's on a larger slate than yesterday, less likely that you just fall into place to have all of those outlier performances on the same lineup. But, I mean, again, the lineup generator is basically just narrowing down the best lineups for you. It is isolating them. It is basically just flat out giving them to you. So it'd be silly not to utilize that. You can then, if there are certain players you have stands on, like Sean V in the chat, who just loves to have stands on God knows what. Yesterday didn't go so well there in Atlanta. Just going to throw that out there for you. But I feel like it's a great opportunity to get to some of the best teams, some of the best stacks that are just relatively unowned. And I like seeing St. Louis pop up in the lineup generator as well. Seems like they're a team that's kind of smattered amongst the top as well. But Arizona, they're under-owned today. They're just getting jammed in the lineup generator as they should.
Yeah, it's $4.48 for the first week too. And Jordan can throw the screenshots up there. We have new ones too. Dude, the Hall of Fame, you should have seen it. We recorded it the other day. And it was just straight like, thanks to the lineup generator. $5 in the 1,500. Hey, lineup generators. I love when people go, hey, the lineup generator's legit, and then tag me in it like I've been bullshitting them the whole time. They're like, oh, wait, I'm no huckster, man. I love doing this stuff, and I wouldn't want to do that. But you see that stuff, and it's, yeah, there's one from the DFS. What's up, Maharishi? 750 and 1,500. The lineup generator makes it quick and easy. It's $4.48 for the first week. What in the heck do you have to lose anyway? Link in the description and in chat. But yeah, like I said, you can lock players, swap players, discard the lineups you don't like, set your stack type, set your lineup type. You can see the ownership, how chalky, contrarian every lineup is, what the optimal projection is. But the cool thing is once you save all the lineups you like, so your 20 lineups, say, you save them, goes to the next page. You can see your player exposures all in one spot, then your stack exposures, and also all of your saved lineups. Then you can just export it straight to CSV, get it on the DraftKings and FanDuel. On this one that I ran, four highest owned stacks: Arizona, Atlanta, St. Louis, and Colorado. I dig it, man. Like I like it. A few of those teams going under owned, massive implied totals, very high top stack probability. And as you know, this is going to coincide with our tools as well.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Those are 3 of my 4 highest owned stacks. Colorado's sitting at 6th for me, but again, I can definitely see the case. It's a Colorado team in Coors. I'm overweight to them still to a certain extent, but specific batters, especially that I'm getting to a little bit more. Looking at Ryan McMahon, looking at Nolan Jones. Those are kind of the 2 guys that are jumping to the top for me. But I love what our lineup generator is capable of doing, and it shows up in the results too. You can back test it. You can look at it directly on Twitter and see all of the success other people are having with it. Definitely want to be taking advantage of it. And also, if you're looking to try out any of our tools, that's the lowest price point you're going to run into, bar none, with as much effectiveness and how much value you get out of it.
Yeah, man. You could go with a Sims tool, which is just, lineup generator on steroids.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're paying more for it, which is also just an amazing tool. Our CEO, Tom, just took down 50K on it the other day. So really all depends what you're doing, how much time in the day you have, whatever. But both of them make your life a lot easier. All of our stuff's 50% off anyway. Link in the description if you wanted to get all of our tools for all sports. You guys know the drill. All right, Jack Flaherty, Michael Wacha. We got like 7 minutes here. I don't think we'll spend a lot of time on Tampa and San Francisco, though. So let me toss this one over to you. Flaherty, Michael Wacha, 8.5 run total between the Orioles and Padres. Pretty evenly matched game.
Yeah, it's an evenly matched spot. I do have some Jack Flaherty interest. I know that it's been a down year for him, but he gets put into an organization that obviously believes in him. And we've seen some glimpses from him, especially in his last 2, where, yeah, he gave up 3 earned to Houston, but 8 strikeouts there and 8 strikeouts against Toronto. This is a San Diego team that they've just underperformed all season long. There's still some pieces that they're only a 21.9% K rate against righties, but a 99 WRC plus. And then there's just individual hitters that kind of account for more of those strikeouts. You're running into the back half with Gary Sanchez, Garrett Cooper, Ben Gamble. And then you're getting in a ballpark upgrade for him outside of Baltimore, about standard of what you'd be running into in St. Louis. I would call San Diego a much better pitcher's park, actually. But I'm looking at Jack Flaherty as somebody who's not pulling nearly as much ownership as I think he should. But I also like the San Diego side as well. Going to be a late slate team that I definitely target.
What are your favorite pieces from this game, though, before we move on to Tampa?
Yeah, I don't have any Michael Wacha interest. I don't think we're really going to see the pitch count get to a place we want to go best with Michael Wacha here coming off of the IL. He hasn't pitched since July 1st, so I'm going to have 0 of him. And then Baltimore on the other side, you got Adley Rutschman. You got these guys that are just a lot more expensive. Gunnar Henderson, obviously, but there's a ton of under-owned upside if you want to find a one-off or if you want to find a 2-man. Just not a team that is going to be in any way kind of a priority for me on today's slate. A team that I'm looking to bet more than I'm looking to play them in DFS.
Well, then you have Tampa and San Francisco. We've got Zach Littell and we have Sean Manaea, presumably the relief guy. A lot of people expected him to be there yesterday. He wasn't. 8.5 run total. This park is worse for homers than any other park in the league for both lefties and righties alike. Evenly matched. Tampa minus 112 on the money line away from home. But if you're looking at this game in relation to the rest of the slate, the other 13 games on the slate, are you prioritizing anything? Because we have no ownership going to Manaea or to Littell. And then as far as stacks go, normally when that's the case, you'd be like, oh, well, they must be, highly leveraged or good stacks. San Francisco, 1.6 top stack probability on this slate. Tampa Bay, 2.6.
I would have some Zach Littell interest if I knew that we could get to around 80, 85 pitches, even though there are there's basically no opportunity cost with pitching. I still want my guys to have upside of 90, 95 pitches in almost every single situation here to really land on them. I guess the one counterpoint to that is that there's no ownership coming in against him. But we know San Francisco loves to platoon it, and he's got a 24.1% K rate, does Zach Littell, against lefties. Just a 17.3% K rate against righties. And a lot of that is just kind of his fastball plays a little bit more lively over to some of the lefties. It kind of breaks away. It looks like it's going to be a decent enough strikeout pitch here. Has a 438 BABIP against it too, so I expect positive regression against some of these lefties. He's been giving up a little bit more contact, and the ball's getting put in play, and just it's resulting in more than it should. Zach Littell would be a piece. I'm still kind of maybe second guessing myself. Maybe I need to get to some. I have 0 at the moment. He's only 1%. I think maybe more of a late slate play for me, Don't know what that pitch count's going to look like, but considering he's kind of been leveled around 73, 72, probably no interest. As for San Francisco, now, yeah, as you said, Minaya didn't show up. Now, could he show up? Sure, but that's the game that you play. It's a 13-game slate. I'm not going to play him on it.
Milwaukee and the Dodgers. Remember, live before lock coming up next. Do not go anywhere. Stay glued to those seats, friends. You have Hall of Fame coming up in between this too. Shout out to all of our winners from this week getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum, $120 value, just because they went to stochastic.com/avatar, downloaded the avatar, and rocked it wherever it is they played. Then, of course, they finished top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more and tweeted their wins to us at Stochastic HOF. But what a way to ice the cake, a little cherry on top action to win a tournament or finish top 3. Doesn't matter how low the stakes are, how high they are, and then get a free month of all of our tools. Sounds like you should use the avatar and go to stochastic.com/avatar and represent that wherever it is you are. But yeah, stick around. That show's coming up. We'll close it with Adrian Hauser and Bobby Miller. Hauser's a weird pitcher. What's that?
Oh, I thought that was my segue to just start talking about how Bobby Miller's my second highest owned pitcher.
I like him today. I think this is one of those spots where he's just kind of under-owned when you've got so many other pitchers, similar matchup, similar price, similar talent that's getting essentially no owner or way more ownership than him today. Matt and I talked about this on today's show as well. So interested to hear your takes on it too.
So he had 28 strikeouts and 21 1/3 at Oklahoma City. Immediately brought that to the bigs and the K stuff, 22.6%. It's nothing to besmirch. It's nothing to scoff at, but I expect it to start going up. His sinker is so live immediately at the big league level. He has crazy velocity sitting around 99. He can throw it upwards of 101, 102 when he wants to and can kind of force the issue in some of these spots. He's also got a 100 pitch upside that we saw against Cincinnati, given he was getting himself into some really long counts in that outing, watched almost that entire game. He's also had 4 walks against teams like Arizona. Some spots where there's just been some outlier stuff that hasn't really worked in his favor. But now he's got almost no ownership. He's 9,300. He's in a spot against Milwaukee where I don't give this team any credence whatsoever. Sure, they can avoid strikeouts to a certain extent from time to time, but they have a 23.3% K rate, and it's a little bit higher with this given lineup. That would be top 10 in baseball. They have just an 88 WRC plus. So I do think he will be able to avoid any kind of run creation. His expected ERA is better than his actual ERA at 3.78 next to 3.89. And then I just look at this velocity and I look at what this slider curveball combination can do if he's not walking guys. I think there is 8-9 strikeout upside with a guy like Bobby Miller here for 100 pitches, and he could just mow down Milwaukee in a spot where he is completely unowned.
I love it. I'm with you on that. Dodger bats are kind of weird though, because it's not like they have a low total, but Adrian Hauser is just kind of one of those guys where you never want to play him in DFS, but he also doesn't give up a ton of power. Like he's not terrible in that respect. He's not good, but he keeps the ball in the yard and he's done a good job of that. He's also, when you look at, let me just pull this up real quick. There it is. He has a 145x ISO to righties, 0.095 actual ISO, 136x ISO to lefties, 179 actual ISO, but it appears, those numbers would suggest he's even been a little bit unlucky against opposite-handed bats.
Yeah, and I think that's great analysis. And even furthermore, same-handed bats, a 363 BABIP against for Adrian Hauser.
Right. I didn't even see that.
Pretty darn high. And so everything else that you covered is exactly what I was going to say, where X ISOs, when they're sitting there below 1.50, you got a guy who's just mitigating power in a pretty real way. It is still the Dodgers. It still is Dodgers, specifically these lefties and Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, David Peralta, James Outman. They are guys who are going to smash baseballs. But Adrian Hauser's been doing enough to mitigate it. I think they're a team that I wish I could be getting to more of, but it seems like Arizona's existence, St. Louis's existence, Seattle's existence for me as well. I know that they're maybe a little bit overowned against Jordan Lyles, but I don't care. Minnesota as well against Fado, playing both sides of that one. Just doesn't feel like a slate where I'm going to be getting to as many Dodgers as I would have if I had been building lineups the way I did once upon a time.
Hey, go follow Eric at Eric Lindquist on Twitter. Follow me at Lafayette_D. Shout out to our man producing the show, the man behind the virtual glass, Jordan Klein. Yeah. Greg Ehrenberg, Neil Orfield coming up next. Appreciate you guys as always. We're hitting 250 likes before we close this out. Can't ask for more than that, right?
It's insane. And not even NFL. NFL will be 2,500 likes. Looking forward to that. But coming soon, Lofty.
I appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of the night. Good luck tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive. And remember, Jock Market's got that Aaron Judge, if you join late, 0.5 or over a half hit plus run plus RBI. He's done it 8 straight. It's 2.5 on traditional books at even money. Use the promo code. The link in the description, Stochastic10 when you sign up is the promo code. Get you 100% first match deposit up to $100. And this, I won't call it a free square, but a massive reduction in price on this square for Aaron Judge. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace. Yo, it's that time of week again. Stochastic Hall of Fame. Time to induct all of you fine people into the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Give away some free months of Stochastic Plus Platinum. Well, $120 value there. And all you got to do to get involved in the action, get your free month, get here up on the board so we can do the bragging for you. Download the Stochastic Avatar at stochastic.com/avatar. Use it wherever it is you play. DraftKings, FanDuel, doesn't matter. And then finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Doesn't matter if it's the quarter arcade, the dollar, or something big. Tweet your wins with the screenshot to us at Stochastic HOF. When you do, you'll get that free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. You're getting the Hall of Fame. Let's get to it for this week. Kicking it off with John Bryan. Took it home. Matty G, your preseason projections are a must every single season. Find them over at stochastic.com, by the way. Thank you for your hard work and dedication to the deep dive that is the NFL preseason. There's still an edge. Congrats, Colby. You love to see it, man. $1,000. Little preseason win there. Hey, preseason money's pretty big right now. And then our own CEO, Tom Kennedy. $50,000 and $5,000 on the same day. MLB DFS comeback is complete. Quit playing MLB a few years back. Loved projections and game theory, but couldn't compete with the software guys and their sims. So we set out to level the field and elevate sports over software with Stochastic Sims. Never had so much fun playing DFS. Congrats, Tom. CEO taking down $55K. How about Ron? He's got a $1,000 win. Hall of Fame, baby. Lock me in. Also, rocking the Stochastic Avatar. See how easy this is? Congrats, Ron. Standing Fern. Getting that bankroll for the NFL season. Great time to do so. Huge thanks to the lineup generator. Such an awesome tool. And then we've got our own Josh Engelman, the absolute best way to wake up. Fell asleep 15 minutes before the Muncie home run. This freak can fall asleep when he's sweating 50K. But Josh takes home 50K. Big shout out to our boy and my co-host, Josh Engelman. And Forrest, to close this one out, just snuck into the top 3 using the tools, $600 to TH 1,800, $600 win in the 4-seamer. Congrats to all of you guys. Remember, download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar. Use it wherever it is you play. Tweet your wins to us at Stochastic HOF. Get that free month, $120 value. Get in the Hall of Fame, and we'll catch you back here next week for the next one. Peace.
Okay.
Good.
Oh, that's why my computer hasn't been charging. It's plugged in. I've got the plug in the computer and the other part's into nothing. I've got the block just sitting on the floor. I thought my charger was broken. No, the user's an idiot. That was the problem the whole time. What is happening, everybody? Tuesday night, and myself and Neil Orfield are about to break down a big MLB DFS slate. We've got another Coors Field game. We've got the worst pitching options imaginable, but don't worry, because we are here to guide you through all of it. As you come in, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It helps us out a whole bunch in terms of growing our site here, keeping all our content free, and it's zero effort to you. You just click a couple of buttons, and there's also that really cool YouTube animation that you will only find out about when you click that like button, the thumbs up there. If you don't do that, you'll have no clue what the animation is. So go check that out. It is something that you guys should be doing to help us out. And also, how we are going to help you out is some free money. Have you seen this deal at Jock Market for today, Neil Orfield?
I have not seen the deal on Jock Market. What's the deal?
So they have a deal today. Well, first off, you sign up, use the link below, and you can use the promo code Stochastic10. You're going to get a deposit bonus up to $100. Over under Aaron Judge, 0.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs, 0.5. All you need is Aaron Judge to get an RB, a sac fly. Maybe he reaches on a walk and ends up scoring a run. He gets one single, and this prop is going to hit over at Jock Market. They've got Pick'em now over there, and this is the best offer available anywhere today. Aaron Judge, over 0.5 hits, plus runs, plus RBI. Just need one of any of those, and you're going to cash this play on Aaron Judge. Just make sure when you sign up, use that link below, use the promo code Stochastic10 to get up to the $100 bonus on your first deposit. Neil, what's happening? How was your night last night?
It was good. I didn't really do much last night. Stayed in, didn't do anything exciting. Yeah, today's been good. I became a thread guy today. I did a thread on Twitter. Didn't take off. I thought you just get 80,000 followers immediately when you do a thread. Didn't work for me. Maybe I'll try again someday. How are you doing today?
I did no threads today. I did post some home run bets, though. If anybody's looking for home run bets, I'm doing a giveaway on Twitter. If all three of my home run prop bets hit today, going to give away $200 to somebody who likes the tweet and replies with their favorite home run bets. So if you guys want a chance to win some free money, go take advantage of that. Or if you just want to tail me on bets, that's totally cool as well. Because last week, trying to do this because FanDuel does these Dinger Tuesday promotions. And last week, won a bunch of money because I hit on a plus 520 homer prop, hit on a plus 700 prop. So going to keep doing these every Tuesday on Twitter and see if it could definitely pick up some steam over there. But we've got DFS to talk about today. And Neil, do you feel good about any of these pitchers today? They all generally either suck or it's decent pitchers in the worst matchups available.
Yeah, I don't feel great about any of them. Today is just a day where I'm spreading out my pitchers quite a bit. None of them give me a ton of confidence.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough day for pitchers and at offense, which we'll get to a little bit as well. A lot easier to pick offenses. What it's really hard to do is narrow down the offenses because I want to play all of them today, which is definitely a little bit of an issue because so many of them are in good spots. Like we mentioned, we've got a Coors Field game. We've got a bunch of crappy pitchers on the mound. But I'm just kind of curious, and we don't usually start this way, but I'm just wondering, who is the one pitcher you have the most exposure to today? Is there one pitcher? Because everything's kind of grouped together today. Is there any one pitcher who you just have way more exposure to than anybody else? Because, at least as of right now, there's Nick Pivetta picking up 31% ownership, Yusei Kikuchi 24%, and the field's just we don't know what the hell to do. So the pitching exposure is crazy spread out. But is there one pitcher that you are well overweight to today or just somebody who you're trying to prioritize?
No, so I set my pitcher cap at 30%. You just named two of the three pitchers who got to that 30% cap. It is Yusei Kikuchi, Nick Pivetta, and David Peterson. I have 30% of each of those pitchers. I might end up taking a little bit of a stance on a Jordan Montgomery, just because of the low ownership. Lucas Giolito, I know Eric talked about him a little bit yesterday. He's the way that I'm making my lineups right now. If I don't do anything to his projection, since I haven't run any sims, I'm not getting to any, but I think that I'm actually going to give Giolito just a little bit of a boost, try to get to 5%. And at 5% of Giolito, I would be well over the field. So I think that's probably one of the few stands I'm taking is, I'm going to try to get to something like 5% Lucas Giolito. And given that he's coming in at under 1% ownership, that's actually a pretty big stand on Giolito. But yeah, there's nobody that I'm trying to get to 50% of my lineups. It's ugly out there.
Yeah, I only have one pitcher in more than 30% of my lineups right now, and it's just barely over. It's on David Peterson. I was having a little back and forth before the show with Lee. We were trying to figure out how we wanted to have, David Peterson projected for pitch count today because Peterson's numbers overall for the year, they're not great, but he has suffered from a lot of bad luck. He's transitioning from being a reliever to a starter. And there is a chance that we just see him go throw, 80 plus pitches today. And if that is the scenario, you've got a guy who has modest ownership with strikeout ability on a slate where just the pitching options overall suck. But I don't have any kind of real significant amount of confidence in anybody for today. But right now, Peterson is the pitcher that I'm getting the most exposure to. But like I said, I'm going to be spread out a pitcher. He's somebody who I only have a little bit more than 30% of. Let's talk about the chalk on the slate, though, Neil, because we have, like I mentioned, the most popular pitcher is Nick Pivetta. He is at 31% ownership. And then we also got Kikuchi at 24% at 9,000. So did you say you got to your ownership cap on Pivetta?
Heard. I got to my ownership cap on both of those chalky pitchers. They both have negative leverage. If you're only playing, one lineup, I probably wouldn't put those guys in there just because they do have such negative leverage. But if you're playing, 20 plus lineups, I would say you do what we usually do, which is kind of eat the chalk at pitcher. There's a reason that they're chalky. It's because they are great point per dollar plays, get different with your bats. But yeah, I'm getting to 30% of each. So I'm actually like above what we have projected. We have Pivetta projected for almost exactly 30% ownership. That is what I have of Pivetta. Obviously, great matchup with Washington, but it is negative leverage on all these guys. Pivetta coming in with a 13% chance of being a top 2 pitcher at 30% ownership. Pretty massive negative leverage. And like he's not a top point per dollar option either. 13% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher as well. So, he projects well relative to his salary. But that's, and he has a nice matchup, but that's kind of the best thing you can say about him. It's a very large slate. There are a lot of ways that you could get different. So if you're hand building, probably not the first place I'm going, but if you're playing significant volume, try to limit your risk a little bit. I think it makes sense to go to these guys.
Yeah, so I feel kind of similarly about the chalk pitchers today that I did yesterday. Like we were talking about Miles Michaelis, and I just was totally confused by his ownership. And I get the options all kind of suck today, but considering they suck, like, I just think it's easier to just be like, hey, if these pitchers are 30, 25% owned and I don't feel great about them, why don't I just play some guys who are like 15% owned that I also don't feel great about? Yeah. And I just have half the ownership on them. And the one that like I would highlight is somebody like Miles Michaelis yesterday, who sure was in a good matchup against the Oakland A's, but I felt like it kind of got overlooked that Miles Michaelis totally sucks. And then what happens? He goes out against the Oakland A's. He doesn't pitch well. He didn't strike anybody out because he never strikes anybody out. And that's really how I want to approach this slate as well. So I'm underweight to the field on both the chalk pitchers. I actually have, let me see if I sort by the leverage. Yeah, these are two of the players on the entire slate that I'm most underweight to. And you say Kikuchi and Nick Pivetta, and we can look at their numbers individually, but these are just high variance pitchers who are not studs by any means. But I think there's tremendous downside too. Is there an upside? Sort of. But like, is there any more upside in like Kikuchi than there is in like a David Peterson or in any of these other like they're all just similar to me. So I'm just going to prioritize the guys who are a little bit lower on. I'm coming underweight to the field on the chalk at pitching. And then if we start to look at some of the expensive pitching options, which is a way that you could differentiate some of your lineups, Bailey Ober, 10,200, he's projected for 17.7% ownership. Zach Wheeler's projected for 17.3% ownership. Then you got Jordan Montgomery for 12% ownership. $11,000 is the price point on Jordan Montgomery. What world are we living in? Jordan Montgomery, I'm curious now. What would you guess, Neil, is the most expensive Jordan Montgomery has been the entire season?
9,400. 9,400.
So he got up to 10,000 actually in his last start, but that was the only time he was above 9,000 the entire season. So like his price point is just all of a sudden shot up by $2,000. It's just a lot. So I think a lot of these guys, it's kind of hard to make a really good case for me. But if you had to pay up for one of these pitchers, is there one you're getting to more than the others?
Yeah, if I had to pay up for one, it would probably be Montgomery, just because he is a little bit cheaper than Zach Wheeler and has a better matchup with the Angels. I am getting to more of Bailey Ober. So I guess he's a little bit cheaper, but I am getting to, like, of the 5-figure guys, Bailey Ober is the one that I'm getting to the most of. Decent matchup with Detroit. I don't feel great about it though. Like Bailey Ober, he's not some stud pitcher. Got a little bit of negative leverage there. If I were hand building, it would probably be Jordan Montgomery. He feels safer to me. He's a little bit more expensive than Bailey Ober, but I think he has a higher upside and a little bit of a higher floor probably. I do like Lucas Giolito is kind of interesting, but obviously very scary playing against Texas. So yeah, Bailey Ober is the answer to who I am getting the most of. If I were hand building, it would probably be Jordan Montgomery for me. But again, I don't feel great about any of them. I guess Zach Wheeler actually looks the best in the top pitchers tool with a little bit of positive leverage, but the matchup also terrifies me. Are you taking any kind of hard stands on these high-end guys?
Yeah, not really playing any of them because of what the price point is. So
Sure.
the one I have the most exposure to is Bailey Ober, but I do not have a single one of these expensive pitchers in more than 10% of my lineups. What is the actual realistic chance that Jordan Montgomery breaks the slate at $11,000? It just does not seem like a likely proposition to me. And he is somewhat popular on the slate. By the way, we're going to get to some other pitchers I actually am overweight to. I'm not underweight to every single pitcher on the entire slate. I already mentioned David Peterson's the pitcher that I have the most exposure to. But I don't want to play Jordan Montgomery at 11,000. I don't want to play Zach Wheeler at ceiling price point on the road against the Toronto Blue Jays. Like, sure, is there some safety there? Could he go out and pitch decently and score 18, 20 fantasy points? I think that's a bad expectation for him, but that's not something I'm going to pay $11,600 for. So the expensive guys, it's really none of them for me. Do you think that's reasonable?
I think that honestly, I think that's probably a sharp move. And I'm looking up Jordan Montgomery. I'm just curious what his strikeout rate is only 21% this year. Like that is such a low strikeout rate for a guy to be that expensive. I think it probably is the sharp move. It's just like what are the chances? I mean, I guess we have the top pitchers tool that kind of answers this question for me. I was going to ask, what are the chances that he ends up being one of the top two pitchers? We actually have that answer. 17% chance of Jordan Montgomery being a top two pitcher. So I guess he looks fine in the top pitchers tool, but also like 2.9% chance of being a top 2 point per dollar pitcher. I guess the real question is, what are the chances that Jordan Montgomery puts up a score that is so much higher than the guys who are 2,000, 3,000 cheaper that you really need him? And I think that it does make sense to like, you are kind of paying for the security a little bit, like you're paying a little bit for the floor with guys like Jordan Montgomery, because he's definitely more likely than other pitchers, cheaper pitchers, to get to like 18 to 22 fantasy points. But yeah, it feels pretty unlikely that he's going to put up 35 or 40 fantasy points and like where you actually really need him. So I don't hate the idea of fading these guys at all.
And it's not like they're out of my player pool entirely. I just don't have more than 10%.
Yeah. Which is reasonable.
You know, it's funny. Like, so Jordan Montgomery, his last start, he pitched against the Oakland A's. His price point was 10,000. He scored 14.7 DraftKings points. It's like, cool. Now he's 11,000 next start.
Yeah, it's insane. I don't understand what they did here. Did they misclick some things? I don't know what DraftKings was thinking with these prices. I guess they are making it interesting for us though, because it's not like
the way the pricing works is relative to the other pitchers on the slate.
Yeah.
And all the pitchers are so shitty today that it's just like, all right, Jordan Montgomery becomes 11,000. And then people just click on him because they look at the other names and be like, well, I don't want to play any of these other guys. I don't want to play him either, but these are the options that are available to us. So I go out, I play David Peterson, and I hope that his pitch count gets extended a little bit. And I'm going to dive a little bit more into David Peterson here as well, so I could pull up some of his numbers and tell you guys why it is that he projects fairly decently for us. And by the way, if you want to sign up for any of the tools, packages we have over at Stokastic.com, link below. When you sign up for the first time, you're going to get 50% off. So David Peterson has a 5.61 ERA this year. You interested yet, Neil?
Yeah, super interested in that.
All right, so here's the positives. 4.45 FIP, 3.6 xFIP. He's been done in by terrible luck. He's a 374 BABIP this year. That is not something that's going to maintain. He's a 22.7% home run to fly ball rate. Some of it's he's giving up a lot of hard contact, but nobody you would expect, like 1 out of every 4 fly balls they allow ends up being a home run. So definitely some bad luck going to David Peterson. Here are the positives. He's a 24.1% K rate. He's extremely cheap on DraftKings, $6,700. We have to roster 2 pitchers. And he's a good matchup against the Pittsburgh Pirates. So what I'm going to look more at is the upside, because it look like when you were making a case right now for Jordan Montgomery, I know you weren't actually making it as your case for Jordan Montgomery. You're making a case like why somebody might click on his name. And it's mostly tied to a floor. I'm not playing GPPs like a pussy here, Neil Orfield. I want to win some fucking money today.
That's right.
So I want to look at what is the ceiling of players. I don't care about their floors. And there's an actual ceiling in David Peterson, even if it isn't all that likely that he hits it. There's a chance that he goes out. His last couple outings, he goes 52, 62 pitches. Could he get up to 80? could maybe pitch really well, get up to, like mid 80s potentially. And that's where I look at the strikeout rate of him and say, like, there's an actual ceiling here for that kind of price point. And by the way, he has an actual history of being a good pitcher. Last year, he had a 3.83 ERA. He had a 3.64 FIP, a 27.8% K rate last year. So I know he has it in him. I'm going to be playing a lot of Peterson. Is it going to go poorly? Potentially. But guess what? I think playing almost any pitcher on today's slate is going to go poorly. So that's where I come in. Underweight to the field on Peterson. And also, shout out to Malukar in the chat. He just gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. And then also shout out to our guy, Chris Williams. He also gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. So appreciate you guys and all the support. And anybody else, the easiest way to support us, like I said before, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Who are the low-owned pitchers that you're taking chances on to differentiate your lineups a little bit, Neil? I mentioned I got Peterson in here. Do you have anybody akin to David Peterson?
I'm thinking about working. I mean, we talked a little bit about Giolito. Like I am forcing in some Giolito. I'm thinking about forcing in a little bit of Jack Flaherty, just because we talked about this the last time. Like he's only been on the Orioles 2 games now, and his first game he saw an uptick in velocity. It came down a little bit on the fastball in the most recent game, but his other pitches were still going a little bit harder than they had been previously before he got to the Orioles. And he's pitched fairly well since he got to the Orioles. I think we talked about we talked about this on the last time that he pitched, that like it's more likely that they traded for him because they thought maybe there's something that we can fix there. Like we can probably make him better. He's coming in at pretty low ownership. Makes sense. He's going against San Diego. But since we're talking about all of the disgusting options on this slate, I think Jack Flaherty is another disgusting option that I think I'm going to try to get overweight to the field on and just hope that they are making adjustments with him that are going to change things. He's gotten 8 strikeouts each of the past 2 games, including the last game against Houston. He got 8 strikeouts. Didn't have an incredible game overall, gave up 3 earned runs in 5 innings, but still I'm sort of interested in that. And Padres, it's I'd say similar matchup to Houston, and I think that there is some upside there. So I'd say Jack Flaherty is another pitcher that I'm going to not feel comfortable doing it, but I'm going to take a stand and be a little bit overweight to the field on Jack Flaherty at 8,400 as well.
I get behind that. I mean, it's a lot of stuff, like you said, that we talked about the other day. It's a guy who has a history of being an elite starting pitcher. He got off to a slow start this year. He seems to have hated everything that I do. I don't know what St. Louis did to him, but he hates the team. He hates the ownership. He hates the fans, and he hates the media. And there was interviews where he would, I know this because our friend Adam Schur tweets about Jack Flaherty because he is a diehard Baltimore Orioles fan. And I'm aware of some of the interviews he's done since leaving Baltimore, since coming to Baltimore and leaving St. Louis. There's a part of me that feels like reading some of his comments that it was almost like he was sandbagging in St. Louis, like didn't want to pitch well there because he hated it so much. And say we will about just a couple of games of sample size, his velocity is way up in Baltimore, which you really could attribute that just to more effort if he's throwing harder.
Good point. That's really, just one more reason to think he's clearly not safe pitching against San Diego, but I think that he's at the very least pretty interesting. I turned up my randomness on pitchers more than I usually do. And in my last run was getting to a lot of Touki Toussaint, which I really don't feel great about. But I just did a new crunch and got to less Touki Toussaint. So my biggest stands right now on low owned guys are Giolito and Flaherty. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else. Bobby Miller, I am getting to. I guess he's only getting 8% ownership. I do like Bobby Miller quite a bit. I know Eric talked about him on the last show. He's really interesting. I think that there is a wide range of outcomes there, and at 8% ownership on a slate with shitty pitching, I'm willing to take some shots on Bobby Miller. Also, I'm going to be at least double the field there. You playing any Bobby Miller?
Let's see. Bobby Miller. Let's see. This slate might be different. I have 8% of him. He's somebody I've really not played very much of this year, just in general. So in my player pool, nothing really significant. The cheap pitchers who I am most overweight to talk about David Peterson before. Touki Toussaint is another one, and that's also going to relate to a question we got from Einstein in our Discord chat, who said, do you like Toussaint as a pivot off of Peterson? Peterson isn't all that popular today. So, I don't think it's all that hard to just get overweight to him and just play him. But I'm overweight to Touki Toussaint as well. Another pitcher, young. He has some strikeout ability. If you look at his strikeout rate so far this year, 23.4%. He's another guy who's pretty cheap. Also, extremely low owned. So he is projected for 4.7% ownership. He's in just under 20% of my lineups. So I like Touki Toussaint as a low owned option. The results for him this year haven't been great. They haven't been terrible, but Velocity is up this year, 93.8 miles per hour compared to 93 miles per hour flat the last time we saw him pitching in the big leagues, which was last year. And then also, like I said, we got a little bit of strikeout upside from a pitcher who is not picking up any ownership and is also really cheap. So I really view a lot of these guys kind of similarly. Tuki Toussaint, but another guy who I get to, like I said, just under 20%. So Einstein, yes, I do like Tuki Toussaint, but I'm still good with Peterson. I don't think you have to look at Toussaint as a pivot off him. You can play both of them together, and I have no issue with that whatsoever. Some other questions that we have in our Discord channel. This one is coming from Justin. Just Locks is asking us if we're playing one lineup for a FanDuel GPP. What are your thoughts on Peterson at pitcher, along with a Colorado and Atlanta stack? So my favorite stack of the day overall is the Arizona Diamondbacks for the second consecutive slate, which didn't go all that great yesterday. But with that said, Colorado and Atlanta are also two teams I'm getting a decent amount of exposure to. Colorado, they're playing at Coors Field. Atlanta, they're Atlanta, and they're going up against Luis Severino, who has just been a gas can of all gas cans this year. Things go south so quickly for Luis Severino this year. So I think it's a pretty good lineup combination there, Justin. If I'm looking at my lineups, I have the Diamondbacks are my most rostered stack, Rockies second, Braves third, and Peterson's my overall most rostered pitcher. So I have no issue with the Rockies, Braves stack, and Peterson as the pitcher there. Another question we have here is from GG123. And he says, oh boy, sorry in advance for a 5v5. Trying to decide my 111 single entry. Both of these add up to the exact same projection. All right, let's see. Brad Miller and Tuki Toussaint as the pitchers on one side, Pivetta and Hancock on the other side. I prefer Brad Miller and Toussaint as a pitching combination to Pivetta and Hancock. And then Moreno, Blackman, Martinez, Garver. Okay, so the top one is more exposure to Coors Field and is more pitchers that I like. So a GG. Brad Miller, Tuki Toussaint, Moreno, Blackman, Martinez. That's going to be the side that I am going to opt for you. Super chat, by the way, here from our friend Chris Williams. Chris wants to know, great show like always. Thank you, Chris. For the night slate on DK, would you just mix and match Miller, Littell, and Flaherty if playing 100 lineups and then fade the rest? Also, hit the like button. Bring yourself some good karma. And then also, Chris Williams left us another super chat. Said it's free to hit the like. Don't be a Muppet. Exactly. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate the support here. Let's look at the night slate. If we're looking at just the night slate, Neil, which has 3 games. So we got Dodgers, Brewers, we've got Orioles, Padres, and we've got Rays, Giants. Of those 3 games, which pitchers would you be prioritizing? He has asked us, will we go Miller, Littell, and Flaherty, or is there somewhere else you would go as well? I don't really see a whole lot of need to play. Well, let's see.
So those 3 would be the most interesting for me. We do have, Michael Wacha projected for around 14 fantasy points. He's 9,800. He's the most expensive and projects worse than Bobby Miller. But he actually projects better than Flaherty.
Yeah.
So
he also hasn't pitched in a month and a half. Oh, he's coming off the injured list at 90. I'm pretty opposed to playing $9,800 pitchers coming off the injured list. So I would avoid Wacha.
Even on the main slate, I have zero exposure to Wacha. Yeah, I guess I'm probably with you. Like Junis at 7,400.
And by the way, I would feel if he wasn't 33%, like it's not like you're getting him at 5% ownership. You've got a guy who's $9,800. He's 33% owned and might pitch like 4 innings.
That's true. Yeah, but I'm trying to. So would you play any? Did you say he's playing 100 lineups?
He's playing 100 lineups. He wants to know Miller, Littell, and Flaherty. And will we consider anybody else?
I would probably mix in some Hauser. Not because I feel good about it, but if you're playing 100 lineups, like there is, given that we only have 6 total pitchers on this slate, there's a possibility that none of these pitchers are good. So then just having the cheaper, I guess Littell is the cheapest. So say Littell gets blown up and he gets -3 fantasy points. It's possible for Hauser at 8,000, if he puts up 17 fantasy points, to actually give you an advantage on a slate of this size. So I wouldn't force it to only play those 3. I don't know that I would force it to give me a lot of anybody else, but I would, in 100 lineups, my guess is I would probably play some of Hauser, maybe some Junis as well. But those three would be like the three that have the most interest in for sure.
So I would say Hauser, only Hauser, because you're playing 100 lineups, Chris. If you were playing, 10, 20 lineups, I'd say don't play Hauser. But you've got the Dodgers, who are going to be the most popular stack on the entire slate of all the starting pitchers. Hauser is by far the least popular. So with that in mind, I think that Hauser for a 3-game slate, he makes sense in that kind of sense. So I'd go with him as being part of your player pool because you're playing 100 lineups. I wouldn't limit yourself to 3 pitchers if you're playing 100 lineups.
Oh, and then we have Sean Manaea is an option on that slate as well. So he doesn't show up in my fantasy cruncher because he's not starting, but we do have 8% chance for Manaea to be a top 2 pitcher, but we've got him at 40% ownership. So he's going massively over-owned.
He was also expected to pitch yesterday and then didn't. So it's not even guaranteed he gets into the game.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess I had assumed that there was more information today about him pitching. I thought I had seen something, but maybe that's just given ourselves too much credit, thinking that he's definitely going to play. Let me see if there's. Yeah, we talked about him yesterday.
Mark Curry thinks I'm dyeing my hair. Dude, I would have no clue how the hell to dye my hair. I just wake up and show up to work. So here's the decision points I have. It's like, do I shave or do I not shave? And usually it's a no. The dyeing the hair is it's way out of the equation. When I get, by the way, also, I think I'm going to look cool when I have gray hair when I get older.
I bet you will. Yeah. I wish that I had just gone gray instead of bald. Become a silver fox. Just doesn't happen for all of us. Yeah, I'm not, from what I'm seeing on Twitter, we don't have any guarantee that Manaea is pitching today. Like, they haven't come out and said it. So
yeah, it's hard. You just don't know. Because yesterday, like I said, expected a pitch, ends up not doing it. Here we go, though. I'm about to ask you the most difficult question I think I've ever asked you on a show in my entire life, Neil.
Oh, good.
Who are you playing if you had to play a DK cash game right now? By the way, the answer is just don't play cash today. If you had to, which 2 pitchers are you playing on DraftKings, and which pitcher, then we'll do it for FanDuel as well. Which pitcher would you play on FanDuel? All 2 pitchers, DK cash. Where are you going today?
DK cash. Probably Pivetta and Peterson. Probably Pivetta and Peterson. Pay up at bats.
I'll say, this sucks. I mean, I'll say Pivetta and Kikuchi just because of the ownership, right? If you don't know what to do, you might as well just do what the field is doing.
What about Dakota Hudson? 5,800 against Oakland.
Make a case for Pivetta and Hudson too, but goddamn, Dakota Hudson sucks. Like, I have him in some of my lineups as well, but I don't feel great about it. How deep is he going to go into the games? Like, he's just going to ground ball after ground ball, Dakota Hudson?
He allows you to pay up for Diamondbacks bats, though. And since we don't feel good about any pitchers, might as well take a pitcher who has, upside to be mediocre at 5,800 as opposed to 8,000 or something.
I think you talked me into it. Pivetta and Hudson. That'll be my pitching combo for DraftKings cash. Nick Pivetta and Dakota Hudson. By the way, I don't play all that much cash for baseball. I'm sure shit not doing it today. But same exercise for FanDuel. You have to play 1 pitcher, FanDuel cash. Who would you be going with? Totally different scenario over a FanDuel. Walk through some of the pitchers here because the pricing is way more normal looking.
All right, I'm going to pull it up in the top pitchers tool.
Yeah. Like Montgomery's 9,800, which is more reasonable price point.
Still seems expensive for Jordan Montgomery, if we're being honest. Yeah. But yeah, more reasonable.
My answer is going to be Pivetta at $8,500. Still probably more than I'd want to pay for Nick Pivetta, but relative to the other options on the slate, I think that's the go-to FanDuel cash.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've got him 5.5% chance of being the top pitcher. He's cheaper than most of the options. I mean, we do have Peterson with higher odds of being the top pitcher, but definitely has a lower floor too, I would say. So yeah, Pivetta on FanDuel makes sense. Peterson, the pitch count concerns with Peterson matter more to me on FanDuel than DraftKings, just because he's less likely to get the quality start and the win. So yeah, I think Pivetta makes sense.
And one final DraftKings pitcher I want to highlight before we move on. Emerson Hancock has a really good matchup against the Kansas City Royals. He's incredibly cheap and picking up no ownership. He is, a somewhat regarded prospect. He's ranked 3rd overall in the Mariners organization. But more so than anything, he's super cheap. He made his debut against the Padres. He didn't go especially deep into the game, but he made it through 5 innings. He didn't get his ass kicked. I watched the game. He looked okay by the eye test. But what's most important to me, good matchup against the Royals, super cheap, and showed to have strikeout upside in the minor leagues, where if you look at his minor league stats, 26% K rate. Like, for his price point today and the fact that nobody's playing him, I think Emerson Hancock is like fairly interesting. Any other pitchers that you want to talk about?
I don't think so. I think we talked about anybody that I'm getting to with any kind of significance. Just trying to see if there is. I am actually getting to 22% Dakota Hudson. Kind of interesting. Yeah, we've talked about everybody who I'm getting to in double digits.
All right. So let's go ahead and just do like a quick overview of FanDuel. Like I said, cash games, I would lean towards Nick Pivetta. But looking at our top pitchers tool and some of the ownership projections we have on FanDuel, Neil, who are a couple of the pitchers, one on the high end and one on the low end, do you think are most appealing for FanDuel tournaments?
So on the high end, man, Giolito is only 8,600 on FanDuel. That's kind of interesting to me. Coming in at 5% ownership, 5% chance of being the top pitcher. That's pretty interesting to me. I guess depends where we draw the line on high end. That's actually not that high end for Luke. He's actually like fairly cheap. So maybe he doesn't qualify. Jack Flaherty, again, on FanDuel, coming in at less than 1% ownership, 5% chance of being the top pitcher. But probably, just looking at like the top of the top pitchers tool, we've got Zach Wheeler coming in at 10% ownership on FanDuel, 7% chance of being the top pitcher. Looks pretty good there. Jordan Montgomery, as you already mentioned, he's a lot cheaper on FanDuel than DraftKings, getting more ownership as a result, as you would expect. Bailey Ober, we actually have a little bit of positive leverage there, 5% ownership, 6% chance of being the top pitcher. Yeah, we've got better options on FanDuel, or like they're priced better on FanDuel in general. Were you asking me for just one at the high end?
Yeah, I said one on the high end and one on the low end.
Okay, so I'm giving you way too much. All right, if I'm just playing one on FanDuel, probably Jordan Montgomery, 9,800. I'd probably just go there at the high end, and then the low end. Like where do we set the price cutoff here?
Yeah, we'll say 8,500 and higher on the high end. Anything below that, we'll consider the low end.
Okay, then on the low end, probably go in. I don't love Kyle Hendricks. 6,400 Dakota Hudson. It's kind of interesting. I don't love the low end on FanDuel, to be honest. I'm not finding anybody that I'm really wanting to play below 8,500. I guess it would be Dakota Hudson just because he'd allow you to pay up for expensive bats. But there's maybe Josiah Gray, actually, 8,200 against Boston, coming in at 0.5% ownership, 4% chance of being the top pitcher. It's a little bit interesting. He's got a little bit of upside in him. Maybe I'll go Josiah Gray. Do you like anybody on the low end for FanDuel?
Yeah, I'll go David Peterson, $6,700. Hope he can make it through 5 innings, get us the win bonus. It's super cheap price point. There is some strikeout upside like we talked about before. On the high end, Bailey Ober pitching against the Detroit Tigers. Only project for 4% ownership. The 10,300 price point is more than I would usually like to play for Bailey Ober, but he does have an over-under of 6.5 strikeouts at Sportsbooks today. I did bet the under, but still 6.5. That is a decent enough number for a pitcher's in a good matchup against the Detroit Tigers, and it is reason for me to at least like him and a good matchup for DFS purposes. So if you're playing on FanDuel, my favorite pay-up option with all things being considered is Bailey Ober. My favorite cheap option with all things being considered on FanDuel is David Peterson. So
yeah,
Jordan,
I totally just missed over David Peterson, by the way. That's the right answer.
All right. Well, I'm not sure that's the right answer. We'll find out a few hours from now. It's the right. If he scores -8 fantasy points, not to be totally results oriented, but maybe we'll feel differently about him being the right answer.
Right.
But he is an answer for sure. But let's go ahead and build some lineups in the lineup generator and see what's popping up there. And we'll do contrarian lineups today. I'm really interested to see if we make contrarian lineups, what pitchers end up coming out. So let's go all stack types, Jordan, but then go contrarian. And I want to see what we get to on both DraftKings and FanDuel if we're trying to build contrarian lineups. And if you guys want to sign up for our lineup generator tool here, it's the most beginner-friendly tool that we have over at Stokastic.com. And you get access to it for less than $5 when you sign up for the first time using that link below. Exposures, a lot of Diamondbacks. Is that surprising to you at all?
Not surprising at all.
No. Even building contrarian lineups, like, I mean, they're, once again, second consecutive day, about half of my lineups are going to be Diamondback stacks today. As far as player exposures, let's check out those pitchers, Jordan. Hey, David Peterson, 45% of lineups.
Look at all
Bailey
those
Ober,
Diamondbacks.
20%. Yusei Kikuchi, 20%. Nick Pivetta, 15. Tuki Tucson, 15. Once again, kind of similar to yesterday, my exposures are pretty similar to what the pitching exposures we have in the lineup generator tool here. So I am a little bit lower on David Peterson than what we're getting to here, but yeah, this is a lot of Diamondbacks, and I don't have 80% Diamondbacks. That's more Diamondbacks than I have, but the pitchers pretty close to what I have. And also, like I said, I'm underweight to the chalk pitchers. We're coming in underweight to them here. I like what I'm seeing as far as pitchers go. What stands out to you in these lineups?
That the top 8 bats are all Diamondbacks. That stands out to me. I mean, it's not shocking, but that is a lot of one team. Yeah, the pitchers pretty spread out, which is good to see. That's kind of the approach that I'm taking as well. I'm even more spread out than we're doing here with the Peterson being 45% exposed, being our highest owned pitcher. But yeah, it's looks like a good lineup set. If I got to this, I would probably cut back a little bit on some of the higher owned Diamondbacks bats, maybe try to get below like 60% or so of these guys, but nothing too shocking here.
All right. And once again, go to the stack exposures, Jordan. I want to see beyond the Diamondbacks, who are the other teams. We ended up getting some stack exposures. Then we'll go check out FanDuel as well. Braves 20%, Cardinals 20%. So Braves, like I said, that is one of my 3 most rostered teams, and then the Rockies there as well. So of the teams that we have the 5 most exposure to in the lineup generator, 3 of those teams are my 3 most rostered stacks, being the Diamondbacks, the Braves, and the Rockies. So a lot of the stuff right in line with what I'm doing in my lineups. Let's check out FanDuel now. And while we are checking out FanDuel, we have a super chat from our friend, Mr. CoolCam97, who wants to know what our favorite contrarian stack is on FanDuel. So, Jordan, build out some contrarian lineups. But while we're also looking at this, Neil, if we're looking at our top stacks tool here, what can we tell Mr. CoolCam97 is the best contrarian stack of the day on FanDuel? By the way, if you guys want the overall ownership, we've got 3 teams, well, let's say 4 teams that are projected to be popular on FanDuel today. The Diamondbacks are 16% owned, the Braves 10% owned, the Red Sox 11% owned. Then you got the Cardinals 9.5% owned. Every other team somewhat contrarian. So we take those 4 most popular teams out of the mix. What is the stack that you like the most?
It's a good question. Yeah, we've got some interesting. Colorado is coming in at just 6% ownership with an 8% chance to be in the top stack. It'd probably be Colorado for me if I'm playing a contrarian stack.
Same. I like getting to the Rockies, not to just keep reiterating the same points. I'm well overweight to the field on the Rockies today. Got overweight to the field on the Rockies yesterday. They worked out pretty well, hit a handful of homers, hit a couple of dongs off of Merrill Kelly. So I like going back to the well here with the Rockies. Get a low-owned team at Coors Field. And by the way, it's not like they're going up against some, pitching juggernaut either in Jarvis. So yeah, I think it definitely makes sense to get to them on today's slate. As for our FanDuel lineups here, we got to 30% of the Rockies. We have 55% Arizona, 55% St. Louis, 30% Atlanta, 30% Colorado. I like that mix. It looks pretty good to me.
Yeah.
What do you think about this, Neil?
I like it a lot better. Just being a little bit more spread out. I'm a little bit more comfortable with that just from a, mitigating risk standpoint. I did notice, like, just as before Jordan clicked off, I noticed we had 30% exposure to Paul Goldschmidt on DraftKings, which exposed me, which surprised me. Paul Goldschmidt, 35% on FanDuel as well. So he's looking really good in the lineup generator. Are you laughing at me because I misspoke?
Yeah, because you said that it exposed you.
It exposed me. Yeah, I did say that. Yeah, surprised me a little bit that we had so much Paul. I'm actually not getting too much Paul Goldschmidt on DraftKings, which now I'm concerned about that. Seeing how much we got of him in the lineup generator, I feel like I should get to more.
So this is FanDuel, by the way.
I know, but we're at 30% on DraftKings.
Okay, also. All right.
Or he's super expensive. He's 5,700 or something.
Let's see. What do I have of Goldschmidt today? All right, so I've got all my lineups ready to go. And my top 100 lineups, I have 7% of Goldschmidt.
Yeah, I have 8%. So I guess at least we're in line.
Yeah.
And of course, that's a 20 lineup set out of tens of thousands of lineups in the lineup generator. So it might just happen to be what we got in that 20 lineup set.
Lots of Cardinals, though, here. Newt Bar, we've got Tyler O'Neill, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt. As far as pitchers, we did get to Nick Pivetta the most on FanDuel at 35%. Keep scrolling down here, Jordan. Let's look for more pitchers. Jordan Montgomery, 15%. Like we said before, much more reasonable price tag for him on FanDuel than on DraftKings. And there's our guy, David Peterson, 15%. So my favorite cheap pitcher on FanDuel, David Peterson. Roll the dice a little bit today. We'll see what comes up. Hopefully we get our number. Peterson, I like him as a tournament play. And anything else you want to mention when it comes to these lineups here, Neil? Lots of Diamondbacks, lots of Cardinals, and then a good amount of Rockies in there as well. And then kind of mixing and matching some other pitchers in there is what we ended up getting to here. What else is of note to you, if anything?
I mean, obviously the 70% Lars Nootbaar stands out. I'd probably try to get lower than that just by, cut it back a little bit on the Nootbaar exposure. But yeah, overall, I mean, it looks like we're still getting to a lot of Diamondbacks. Nothing here that I really hate on FanDuel. I think it looks good.
All right, so let's go ahead and answer some questions we have in Discord. And then, we've already mentioned, at least me, a lot of my favorite top stacks of the day. So we will hit on those as well, but I'll reiterate some of the same talking points. But in the meantime, some questions from Discord. If you guys have any final questions for us, at me in here so we could hit on those before we get out of here in 15 minutes. Gang Green wants to know, tell me why I suck. The reason he says it is because he loves Hancock today. I think Hancock is a perfectly reasonable GPP play. Super cheap, good matchup against the Royals, and an unknown. Honestly, like this, an unknown that's low owned is a totally positive when they're in a good matchup. So I agree with you. I think Hancock is a good option. Now, it depends what you mean by love him. If you have Hancock in like 40% of your lineups, I might say it's a little aggressive, but I'm overweight to him. I think he's a good pitching option. Did you end up getting to Hancock, by the way, Neil?
No, not in my last run, but I think that you make a really good point. And now I gave him a little projection boost because I think 10% ownership feels reasonable on Hancock. I was getting to 0, but I agree with you. He's 5,500. He's kind of an unknown. He's facing Kansas City. Like there's a lot to like about Hancock today. So thanks for bringing him up because I actually think that is a smart play.
Yeah, Hancock, I agree. I think he's a good tournament play. Kepin Kala wants to know who my DK GPP single entry team is tonight, and it is going to be the Atlanta Braves. So I have the most exposure to the Diamondbacks overall. I really strongly considered them, but they are so popular in large field tournaments, and not only justifiably so, but according to our projections, actually under-owned. But I do think they're going to be substantially more popular in single entry. I think we'd be looking at them like 30 to 40% owned in some of like the 121 single entry on DK. So with that in mind, I'm playing the Atlanta Braves in single entry going up against Luis Severino. All of his struggles this year and just knowing how dynamic that Atlanta Braves offense is, I am going with Atlanta as my single entry team. Neil, if you were playing one DK lineups in single entry, who would you go with? Would you be stacking the Diamondbacks? Would it be the Braves with me or maybe somewhere else?
Yeah, I don't think I would go to the Diamondbacks just because I would expect them to be overowned in higher stakes in particular. So if I were just playing one lineup, tempted to go back to Texas after they crushed it last night, but not a great matchup with Giolito. Honestly, I might go back to the Mets again. I was also kind of thinking about Tampa. I don't really love bullpen games, but they are still, even without Wander Franco, they're still a good enough offense coming in at very low ownership. Don't love that they're in San Francisco. I might just go back to the Mets, to be honest.
Oh, by the way, my brother collects a lot of baseball cards. He has a Wander Franco card that I took a picture of. Oh my God, is this aged poorly? I'm going to Jordan. I know we talked about Wander Franco a little bit, but the story. All right, here is my brother's Wander Franco baseball card. I'm about to send it to you. I'll let you decide. Well, it's just a baseball card, so I'm
pretty sure I know what it is. I think I saw somebody else posted on Twitter earlier.
Oh, it could just be the same one that my brother has then. It's
Probably.
How poorly is this age? Because it's a rookie card and it says Youth Invasion on it.
Yeah.
But my brother owns this. My brother owns this card.
Yeah, I think somebody posted that on Twitter. I was scrolling through and I know that I saw that. I was like, man, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. There's a lot of funny jokes to be made about aging poorly in this. But Wander Franco, those rookie cards. There's just so much text you could have in a rookie card that would not age well in this kind of scenario. So, hopefully he didn't do anything, right? That's obviously
Hopefully.
the ideal scenario here. But
Sure.
in the meantime, people are going to get their jokes off on social media.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some other stacks here. Are there any contrarian teams you're prioritizing, Neil?
Any contrarian teams you said?
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, the Mets are sort of interesting to me. I think that they're in a nice enough matchup again that I would go back there at 3% ownership, 5% chance of being the top value stack. I'm not playing a ton of super contrarian. I mean, Colorado, as we talked about, to the extent that you consider them contrarian, I think that they are in play. You could go back to Texas again. The Cubs actually against Tuki Toussaint, I think, I'm playing some Tuki Toussaint, but I would also be willing to play some Cubs against Tuki Toussaint at 3% ownership. I think that they look pretty good. I'm not like, there's no super contrarian teams that I'm like taking a big stand on today. None of them really stand out as like I really love what's going on here. I'm eating some chalk. I'm playing some St. Louis, some Arizona, Atlanta. I think the chalkier teams look good today, which on a slate this size, I would love to find a contrarian stack that I feel really good about the upside, but I'm struggling with it today. Are you finding anything super contrarian that you love today?
Let's see. Well, when you ask me super contrarian, what mark are we considering?
Sub 5%.
All right, sub 5%. I mean, the one I'm closest to, if you would have said sub 6%, I would have said the Colorado Rockies going against Bryce Jarvis, because that is the team that I am, most overweight to on the low end. Bryce Jarvis's numbers are really bad in the minor leagues this year. And, I understand that he's pitching in a hitter-friendly environment, but he's going to be pitching at Coors Field today. So it's not like that's changing in any kind of way. And pitching in the minor leagues this year, he has a 5.48 ERA and a 5.06 FIP. He doesn't really generate a ton of ground balls. He's a high home run to fly ball rate. Listen, I know people are going to be uncomfortable playing the Rockies. People didn't want to play. I played the Rockies last night against Merrill Kelly. I sure as shit am going to be okay with playing them against Bryce Jarvis. The other thing, too, about Bryce Jarvis is he is going to be a 25-year-old making his debut. Like, this isn't some young pitcher who's incredibly well heralded or anything like that. If you go to the FanGraphs prospect rankings, he is the 35th ranked prospect within the Arizona Diamondbacks organization, not like in all of baseball or anything.
Right.
This is a non-prospect. This is a quadruple A guy. Actually, I won't even say he's a quadruple A guy. I usually call quadruple A guys pitchers who are like not quite major league level, but maybe they're quality minor. He's not even a quality minor leaguer. This is just a dude they're throwing out there to eat some innings. I think it's a good spot for the Rockies and only 5.6% owned as a team. So, Neil, I hear your question. You're asking me sub 5%. Well, they're 5.6%. And I'm just cheating and saying the Colorado Rockies because I have about 20% of them. I like the spot for them against Bryce Jarvis.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously make sense. So I'm with you there. I was trying to find something more contrarian. So like I'm totally with you on the Rockies. I think they look great. I'm going to be overweight to the field on the Rockies. Just trying to see if we can find like something if we dig deeper. One that I'll note is Washington. I mean, we have they're coming in at 1.4% ownership, 1.5% chance of being the top stack, and 3.2% chance of being the top value stack. They've got some leverage there because they're going up against Nick Pivetta. So I do think you can make a case for the Nationals. Obviously not a stack that we love, but I think they make some sense here. Similarly, I mean, I guess not really similarly, but the Angels make sense coming in at under 1% ownership with a 2% chance of being the top value stack, 2% chance of being the top overall stack as well. So I would throw Washington out there, I think in particular as a stack that I like that's getting no ownership. But I think, you can go to the Angels, make some sense. Detroit actually looks good against Bailey Ober coming in at 1% ownership with a 5% chance of being the top point per dollar stack, 2% chance of being the top stack overall. So I guess there are some teams at the bottom in terms of ownership that do look pretty good. There's none that I feel super confident in that I really love and think they're going to go off today, but some where you can at least find some positive leverage. And if I were going to call one out, it would be Washington, largely because of that leverage on the 30% Pivetta exposure.
So the other thing I want to ask you as well, while we're talking through stacks, which popular teams are you underweight to, if any? Because I know for myself, I don't really have much of the Seattle Mariners or the Minnesota Twins. So on DraftKings, these are the second and third most popular teams, both of them projected for just under 10% ownership. So not as popular as the Arizona Diamondbacks, but still, these are really popular teams who I do not think warrant the ownership, whereas the Arizona Diamondbacks are popular. I think the ownership is warranted. if I'm looking at my exposures here, when it comes to the Mariners, when it comes to the Twins, I have 2% Mariner stacks and 0.7% Twin stacks. So I'm hardly playing these teams. They're both projected for, like I said, nearly 10% ownership. Do you feel differently here? What are you doing with the Mariners and the Twins? Second and third most roster teams on the slate by the field, and I just think they're too popular.
Yeah, so I am. Let me see what I'm getting to of the Mariners. Actually, I was going to say so. Boston is one team that I am underweight to the field on. I set a cap that is lower than what they're coming at. We just have a little bit of negative leverage on Boston. 8% ownership, 7% chance to be in the top stack, and only 3% chance to be in the top value stack as well. So Boston is one that I'm getting underweight to the field on. I've got to. I think I'm about even with the field on the Mariners. And my Twins, yeah, I actually have, I guess I have 4 5-man twin stacks in 50 lineups. So 12% Twins. So I'm actually overweight to the field on the Twins. They have 12% chance to be in the top value stack. Did I really? I feel like I would have set a lower cap here. So let me double check that I have this right. Yeah, I set my cap at 8% on the Twins. I don't know, something's not making sense here, but yeah, I do have a cap that should have me a little bit underweight to the field on the Twins as well.
Another question about Emerson Hancock in our Discord channel. Hitman Jay wants to know what are our thoughts on Emerson Hancock, DK single entry. No issue with it. Like I said, I'm overweight to him. I think he's a pretty good contrarian pitching play. So yeah, good matchup against the Royals. Super cheap. People aren't playing him. I like Emerson Hancock today. And then also, just because somebody in YouTube chat had brought it up, and he wants to know if I like the Rockies, which players am I playing from the Rockies? I have 3 players from the Rockies lineup who are more than 15% of my lineups today. They are Charlie Blackmon, Ezekiel Tovar, and Ryan McMahon. So those are the 3 Rockies hitters that I have the most exposure to. And then other ones that I also have double-digit exposure to, but a little bit less than 15% are Brendan Rodgers and Nolan Jones. So if I'm telling you to make a 5-man stack, those are the 5 Rockies I have the most exposure to overall. Nolan Jones, Brendan Rodgers, Ryan McMahon, Ezekiel Tovar, and Charlie Blackmon. So hopefully that helps you guys out if you're hand building some Rockies lineups here with just a couple of minutes left. Now let me make sure that I got to all the questions in Discord. And Einstein wants to know Yankees in single entry. I wouldn't play the Yankees in single entry today. That's not enough upside for me. And there are teams like I said before, I'm playing the Braves in single entry. I do think there's teams that are going to be lowish owned in single entry that have a lot of upside today. I don't think the Yankees are a necessary single entry team. Tim Lee wants to know what I think about the Twins. Mentioned before, going to be underweight to the Twins. I wouldn't play them in single entry. My single entry team, also for somebody else who was asking, is the Atlanta Braves. And all right, that gets us caught up on all of our Discord questions. Neil, is there anything else you want to bring up as far as stacks go? If not, time for some dong picks.
Yeah, no, I think we covered the stacks pretty well. I realized that I did my math wrong on the Twins. That's why I was so perplexed for a little while there. I was doing the math for 12 total would have been in 150 entries. I would have had 12 lineups, not 12%. So anyway, yeah, so I'm at 8% of the Twins lineups, which is just in line with the field.
All right. Homer time, Neil. And by the way, they've got the Dinger Tuesday on FanDuel, which I did a tweet about. If you guys want to see some of my home run bets that I've placed today, and if you want a chance to win some money, you could go right on over to my Twitter page at Ehrenberg DFS. Like that tweet, respond to it. If all my home run bets today, I'm giving away $200 to somebody. So go check out that tweet if you want a chance to win some free money. But Neil, who is your home run pick of the night?
I got to get to it before anybody else says it. It's going to be Matt Olson for me.
All right.
40% chance of hitting a home run today. 41% chance.
Got some people in the YouTube chat giving some answers here. We've got Nicholas Robertson saying Austin Riley. Listen, I could back any of the Atlanta Braves today against Luis Severino. We've got Swaggy Pete is saying Wallner. Chris Williams going with Freddie Freeman. Eric Johnson is going with Eloy Jimenez. Sports Wiz, he's throwing Bobby Witt out there. We've got Sean V also saying Eloy Jimenez. Charles Moran, Salvador Perez, Jake Swales. And this is, you start to get to where people start to one-up each other. Jake Swales calling for the Matt Olson double dom today off of Luis Severino. Let's see. What do I want to go with? So I look at my player exposures. It's a lot of Coors Field players, so not going to go there. All right. Here's an Atlanta player. No, I don't want to go there either. All right. I think Atlanta and Coors Field is all cheating today. All cheating by my decree.
What? Atlanta? That's not Coors Field. You're
Yeah,
saying I
but
can't
it's
take
against
Matt
Luis
Olson?
Severino
I got
and
to.
the Braves.
All right, fine. I'll change my answer.
Like Matt Olson homers every single day. Like the last time Matt Olson.
Yeah, that's why I made the pick.
Yeah, the last time Matt Olson homered, he still had it. The last time there was a game where Matt Olson didn't homer, Neil still had hair. Disqualified as a pick, not allowed.
All right, I'm gonna go down to Juan Soto, 26% chance of hitting a home run.
I'm gonna go with the polar bear, Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso only project for 4% ownership today. He's in 11% of my lineups. There's somebody who, if you want a first baseman who's live to homer, that's a pivot off of Matt Olson, Pete Alonso. How about that? Pete Alonso.
Good pick. Good pick.
Some other ones that we have here in the YouTube chat that I'll read off before we sign off for the day. And by the way, guys, thank you very much for hanging out with us and watching the show. If you've not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to check out our podcast channel as well, go check that out. Stochastic Daily Fantasy. We got a lot of stuff that goes up there on the podcast channel, some podcast exclusive content as well coming in there once the football season starts. Vic David Figueiredo is going with Eddie Rosario. We've got Rance. He's going with Aaron Judge. Nicholas Barrett says Brandon Will Belt one. All right. And then Jake Swales, Nicky Lopez, the God. Yeah, Nicky Lopez has been terrible his entire career. And then he goes to Atlanta.
Not this week.
And he proves that what matters sometimes is the name on the front of the jersey, not the back. Because for whatever reason, Nicky Lopez, garbage everywhere he goes, then just fits in with the Atlanta Braves and just becomes an instant masher. So there's the final one there, Nicky Lopez. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Good luck with all your lineups today. I hope you have a good night. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Peace out, everybody.